Hey, Lord Lee, welcome. Mhm. Welcome in, folks. Welcome in. I am a little bit sick today. We'll try and get through this. Welcome. Kia ora. Kia ora, kia ora. Hey, Shiny. How are you? How are you, Shiny? Okay. Today. Hey, Juliana, welcome. Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm just a bit sick today. Got a bad throat. Hey, so today we're gonna go through a couple of documentaries. The first one is, has Darfur descended into genocide? And the second one is 1,000-year fight for Jerusalem. Hey, Lisa. Hey, Tanha. Welcome. So we'll go through it today. This is going to be good. I have wanted to talk about Sudan. It's been a few weeks since we spoke about Sudan.
I told you all I'm tired, okay?
It's been a few weeks since we spoke about Sudan, so this will be a good way for us to get back into adding Sudan into the conversation on here again. This is a nice way for us to bring Sudan back as a topic on this live. Okay. So welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. I'm a little bit crook today, so I'm not going to be my energetic self. Not that I'm that energetic anyway. I'm a little bit crook today. Kia ora, guys. Kia ora, everybody. Hey, Valkarunka. Welcome, Michael Oldsbrush. Kia ora. Hey, Shanna. All right. Let's get straight into it. This is, has Darfur descended into genocide? Let's get cranking.
After the Second World War, the widely accepted legal definition of genocide under international law is in Article 2 of what's called the 1948 Genocide Convention. It's defined as acts committed with the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. Since then, the world has been confronted with a question that seems both simple and impossible at the same time. How could genocide be prevented from ever happening again? But the decades that followed proved that the story was far from over. From Cambodia to Rwanda, from Darfur to Myanmar, and now to Gaza, the world has found itself returning to the same question. How does it keep happening?
I've got myself some ginger tea here, folks. I've got myself some lovely ginger tea. The throat feels like I'm refining some fucking nuclear material in my throat at the moment. So, I may have some good old American democracy in this throat very soon. That's how it feels. But this tea is just, it's good.
To understand genocide, we have to look at what happens before the killing begins. Again and again, we've seen the same patterns emerge in how genocide takes shape.
Yeah, Shanna.
The mechanisms that allow the killing to move faster than conscious could follow. Each time, the world said, never again. Each time, the infrastructure was already in place before anyone used that phrase. What follows is the same pattern, and a case unlike any that came before it.
I'm a stream mom / sis. Shanna, I appreciate you. Thank you for looking after me.
Thank you, friends.
Hey, Cass.
Muda Adam Abdallah survived the recent violence in El Fasher. She grew up here.
Does everyone know what happened in El Fasher? I don't know if you've watched the RSF videos, but it's not a recommendation. I mean, why would you want to watch death and destruction and just murder? But if you want to understand the scale of this, go watch the videos. You can probably find it on X of what the RSF uploaded of all the summary executions, and it's insane, the scale. It was so big. The executions were so vast that you could see pools of blood from space. And that's an understatement. It was so huge. But here's the kicker, right? Here's the kicker about all of this. The world knows what happened in El Fasher. Okay, the world knows. We know. We saw pools of blood from space. But guess what? The RSF, the Rapid Support Forces, have not been proscribed as a terrorist organization by the West. Why are the Rapid Support Forces exempt? The moment you answer that is the moment you realize that the West weaponizes its institutions in so many different ways. And one of those ways is the prescription of terrorism. The simple answer is the Rapid Support Forces are adding value to the West. They are working for Western interests, i.e., they're helping out the UAE, which in turn is helping out Western interests. Canada just signed a free trade agreement with the UAE a couple of days ago. Kani was boasting about it on LinkedIn just a couple of days ago. What about why has the question of this genocide in Sudan not come up? You got to understand, the world we live in is so evil. The West is so insanely tied up into this. We don't even know the half of it. We don't even know a small percentage of it. But there are signs. And one of the ways to know if the West is involved or not is to understand who gets labeled a terrorist and who does not. And if there are atrocities happening where that particular group hasn't been labeled a terrorist, you can bet your bottom dollar that there are Western interests in that conflict. And right now in Sudan, the RSF are working for Western interests. It boggles my mind that I've watched. It boggles my mind that I've watched so many different videos of those atrocities in El Fasher, and the West still hasn't budged.
hearing stories of the genocide that began in Darfur in 2003. She never imagined that, more than 20 years later, she would find herself living through a new chapter of the same tragedy.
شفت أكثر من آلاف البيوت المحروقة، حتى ناس ميتين، الجثث دي مرمية في كل الاتجاه. يعني كيف غيرت كيف غيرت القوم كلاب دي تحول فيه جثث مرمية، بيوت محرقة.
So genocide, at its most basic, is the attempt to destroy groups.
We begin with Darfur not because it was the first case in the 21st century, but because the pattern was unmistakable there.
Not real. We've actually built a platform to allow our community to continue to delve into the files. Feel free to join our Discord community. We have admins in the community, coordinating and helping people get into the files. So we've built a lot of tools to help you investigate, organize the Epstein files. So, and My Clothes Brush is just shared the Discord link, and the thing is, like, we've uploaded 1.4 million, close to 1.4 million PDF files into that platform, which is basically everything the Department of Justice has released. So yeah, there's so much to go through. Like, get on that platform and start using it. Salam Jujus. Hey True Sensei.
Over many years, the warning signs of genocide have become known.
What you learn in Darfur, you will recognize elsewhere.
The story of Darfur's genocide in the early 2000s is an example and a symptom of a system that has relied all too often on violence against civilians to handle deep and difficult political problems.
For more than 20 years, Darfur has been described through aftermath.
This is not a type of violence that happens randomly, that happens spontaneously, or happens just in one small location. Generally, this is violence that requires buy-in from the most senior leadership of a state.
This isn't only an investigation into what happened in places like Darfur. It's an investigation into how a genocide takes shape, the conditions that have to be built, the stories that have to be repeated, the systems that have to align before the destruction of a people becomes possible. So what has to happen to a people before you can commit what many people call genocide? Before Darfur became shorthand for catastrophe, it was a place people belonged to. It is vast, roughly the size of mainland Spain, and for generations,
Liban,
it was
welcome.
home to farming communities, pastoralist communities, and families whose identities didn't fit neatly into the categories outsiders would later use to explain the violence.
من 2003 ده كان بين الجنس عديد جنسك كده لشنو جنسك كده ليه يعني كان في ضرب في قتل حتى فقدنا ناس كثيرة أنا بسمع بس سميتها لكن ما عشت معاهم زي ده يخشوا لهم يجيكم يقتلوهم يحرقوهم يحكوا لي القصص الناس قاعدة تمشي في الحروب العدد أطفال بريئين ماتوا فيها يعني أمك دي قدامك كده ولا رقبتها قدامك كده شوف هذا بس بيع ناس طرف قدامك.
So what?
Hold up. I hate it, but it feels like the world doesn't care. Ivar, like, you can access the platform, bro. I think what people are upset about is that I'm not doing the job of going through file by file for them. That's what I've realized is, like, guys, there are so many tools. Just go through it. Like, we can all put energy into that platform. Like, I think people just wanted to be live streamed and me going through the files one by one. I've been through 15,000 files. Like, if you care, like, go through that platform. Go through that platform bit by bit. You know, if you care that much, I've built you all of the tools you need to go through it. Welcome, Liverpool.
What actually divided them? Darfur's people lived by the land in two different ways. To the north, pastoralist communities, many identifying as Arab, moved with their herds, following grass and water across long seasonal routes. In the central belt, farming communities, the Fur, the Masalit, Nazgawa, among others.
My clothes brush, you can get rid of this nitro piss, and they're obviously just trolling.
Stayed with their crops, worked a plot of land,
hey, Jimmy, welcome.
Kept cattle close to home.
There was already a tension between those communities and the farming communities of the largely African ethnic groups in Darfur.
So when water and grazing began to disappear, those two ways of life collided.
This was a tribal conflict, and it was resolved by customary means.
There were systems, mediation traditions, the Judea, the process of elders convening to hear grievances and negotiate resolutions. That was until January 1971, when Sudan's President Naimiri abolished the native administration system.
Now we have a couple of people complaining in chat. It's like, guys, I think Ivar has been in the community for a while, and we've been blasting notifications about the platform over the last couple of weeks. And yeah, it's what people actually want is for someone to go through it and for them to be kind of like a voyeur of them going through it, rather than like, if you care, you should put in the effort too, guys. Like, it's insane to think that I can go through 3 million files, you know.
Tribal chiefs who had mediated disputes for generations were increasingly sidelined or co-opted. Customary courts that once handled local grievances were weakened, and in many areas shut down entirely by war and state interference. What replaced them was not justice.
And to say it while we're watching something about the genocide of another people, it just shows, I guess, the lack of it just shows the lack of awareness of some people. It's crazy to me.
It was administration. Officials appointed by Khartoum, governing districts whose borders had been drawn in an office hundreds of miles away.
Oh, there's not enough of us. Okay, maybe I misunderstood what you said, man. Maybe I misunderstood. I'm fucking sick, bro. I'm sorry. But guys, like, we can collaborate on this platform like so much. My request is just go on there and let's start doing it. Let's start doing it, guys. We have 1,000 people. We have 1,000 people in our group. We can do so much. Yeah, maybe we won't be able to do 1.3 million or 1.4 million, but we can do a lot.
With no standing in the communities they now presided over. At the same time, Darfur was being hit by worsening environmental stress. By 1984, the drought had become a catastrophe, a famine that killed around 100,000 people in Darfur alone, according to the World Bank, driving mass displacement and the collapse of local economies.
100,000 people killed, man. Come on. Like, this is so fucking insane. It's just so insane. Hey, Faye, welcome. Hope you're well.
And the government in the capital, Khartoum, was slow to send aid. Darfur had long sat at the margins of Sudanese political life. distant from Khartoum, distant from power, distant from the infrastructure and resources concentrated in the country's center.
People in Darfur for many, many years felt they were neglected, felt they were forgotten.
When living conditions deteriorate, people go looking for explanations. And when legitimate systems fail, simpler stories rush in to fill the gap.
Who is seen to belong? Who is seen to have full
there.
rights? And who is seen not to have full rights? The places where genocide occurs, there is a hierarchy of citizenship.
This is where the pattern begins. The resentment against the center took the form of a rebellion. But the rebellion was not shared equally among all the groups in Darfur. The ideological divide took a turn in 1981, when Libyan-backed groups were distributing pamphlets in Darfur declaring that Black Africans, referred to by the derogatory Arabic term Zurga, had no place in the region.
This is the thing. Like, I remember having like a panel of people on what's happening in Sudan. I don't know if you guys ever caught that panel, but the Black people in Sudan are so discriminated by the Arab population and dehumanized. It is a sort of stratified society there. And they've been so dehumanized that the RSF is carrying out these extermination campaigns. You know, the Janjaweed. And like, this is what you don't hear. You just think like Africa is just this group of Africans. RSF are the Rapid Support Forces. They are the RSF. The RSF are fighting in Sudan. They are a militant group split off. A nice Birkenstock. They are a militant group split off from the main army. Hemeti is the leader. But this is the thing, like in Africa, you know, it's not just like this amorphous group of Africans. There's a microcosm in each place of different tribes, subgroups. It's and the way it has been divided by the West, by France, by Belgium, the United Kingdom, Britain, Italy. You know, they've just divided all of these groups into smaller groups. They've all played such a big role on creating the situation in Africa that's there today. I mean, Somalia is a great example. Somaliland is a great example where tribes have kind of been so separated with the British and the Italians. British Somaliland and Italian Somaliland, that even to this day, those divisions exist. It's like the caste system in India, amplified by the British. And to this day, those divisions exist. This is how the West, you know, foresaw the world to be. This is how the West foresaw they would maintain that supremacy by dividing all of these groups to fight within themselves. And that is very, very clear today. And Sudan is no different, guys. Sudan is no different. I had a group of Sudanese people, all different backgrounds, and you could sense the tension. Like, you could sense the tension. The Black Sudanese people are very unheard. The Darfuris, they're called. The Darfuris are very, very unheard in the world. And they're the ones who went through that genocide, right? In El Fasher, they were the ones who were mass murdered.
Then, in 1989, Omar al-Bashir seized power in a military coup and immediately began reshaping the Sudanese state around an ideology of Arab and Islamic.
And on TikTok, there are so many great Sudanese voices. Like, go listen to them of all colors, all skin colors, all backgrounds. There are great Sudanese voices who understand the way Sudan works, and you should keep an eye out for them. Covey knows a fair few of them too.
Supremacy. What had been a current flowing through Darfur's politics became official policy. Sudanese nationalist elites promoted Tahrib, or Arabization, a policy that elevated Arabic language and Arab Islamic identity in government and education. In 1994, the Bashir regime divided Darfur into 3 separate federal states. The administrative boundaries were drawn in ways that fragmented the political power of the Fur, Darfur's largest non-Arab community, making unified mobilization against Khartoum harder.
It's a leadership decision to define the ideology of who belongs and who doesn't.
Identity stopped being an informal label and became the basis for who got land, who got protection, who got resources from the state.
Faye.
One of the most disturbing common findings in studies of genocide is that those who perpetrate it often are ordinary people, and they're committing the violence for ordinary reasons.
Neighbors were not yet enemies, but an infrastructure of enmity was emerging. The categories were being made real. In April 2003, rebels from the Sudan Liberation Army carried out a raid on the government airbase at El Fasher.
Hey, Coco
The
Millie.
government and its army were simply not prepared for the rebellion on the scale that it happened.
They did not deploy their own army. They actually deliberately recruited militias from specific communities that already had grievances with the ethnic groups that they were targeting in the name of counterinsurgency.
This is a pattern the Sudan government had used before in the 1980s with the Bagara Murahalim against Dinka communities in the south. And in the 1990s, Sudan used a similar pattern in the Nuba Mountains, relying on ethnically recruited militias against state forces to attack civilian populations while preserving deniability.
Like, Afrophobia is a real thing. You know, Afrophobia is a real thing. And we're seeing it in South Africa. It's not xenophobia, it's Afrophobia. And I was corrected when I called what's happening in South Africa xenophobia. Afrophobia is a real thing. Like, Black African people have a lot of discrimination against them in Africa. And Sudan is a great example of that.
ولدي مجاهد داعية سكت حمى إحنا بس لقينا شجرة كده قعدنا فيها تحت الظل بيتنا في محلنا ذاك ما في عربية جعانين أكل ما في إننا واحدة معانا ده ولد صغير عمره 6 شهور توفى من الجوع يومين حتى رابع يوم نحن زي ده قاعدين وخالة بس.
In November 1989, Bashir's government had created the Popular Defense Forces, the PDF, by law, a legally constituted paramilitary body designed to mobilize, equip.
I just saw Wavy come into the chat as well. Yeah, Wavy's real good too. There are some really good creators on TikTok, guys, who speak about Africa. Covey speaks a lot more about the Horn of Africa, I think, but Covey's super educated about most areas in Africa. There are others too. There's a whole Sudanese crew who are constantly like advocating. Yeah, you should check all of them out. Great people.
And fund military auxiliaries across Sudan. Members received training, uniforms, weapons, and food, but no salaries. The PDF was the
Eritrea,
legal
yeah.
architecture through which irregular forces could be organized, legitimized, and embedded alongside the state, with enough distance to preserve deniability.
So the dehumanization that happened in Darfur is very much part of the strategy of the Sudanese government and their allied militias.
In 2003, military intelligence officers and senior government officials traveled to Darfur.
Darfuri Darling is another name. Darfuri Darling has an organization called Darfur IDP, which is doing a lot of on the ground humanitarian aid work, which is pretty amazing. I got to meet Darfuri Darling's father, who's very active in that scene as well. Yeah, so it's really good.
They met tribal leaders. Sheikh Musa Hilal, head of the Jalul, the Mahamid clan at the heart of the northern Rizagat, and the man who had hosted the armed remnants of Gaddafi's Islamic Legion a decade earlier, became the central organizer of militia recruitment in North Darfur. The message, according to those present, was direct. We have money. The Arab problem is with the Zagawa. For this reason, Arabs are joining the government.
Some people also thought, look, the government is telling me to do this. It's my obligation to do what the government says. That's my job as a citizen.
Groups with historical grievances against the Fur, Masalit, and Zagawa, and groups with interests in gaining access to their land, were specifically targeted. And the government provided incentives. Not primarily cash, something more reliable.
Just go out and loot and take what you want, including land, including people, and food, and so on.
The one thing to note is what's happening in Sudan. A lot of the Sudanese community will tell you it's not a civil war; it is a proxy war. It's about the gold, minerals, access to the Red Sea. It's all of those things. Sudan is seen as a country with a strategic location, useful for particularly for the West, and it has a lot of land, a lot of rich soil, agricultural land. So the UAE has been exploiting Sudan for their gold, even food growing it on their land, being funded by the West. So it's a sad situation, man, and that's why groups like the RSF have not been prescribed terrorist organizations by the West, because it's helping the RSF's atrocities are helping Western interests. That's why they're not prescribed. It's sick, bro.
The pattern that followed was consistent enough to be documented across hundreds of attacks. First, Antonov bombers or helicopter gunships. Civilian settlements targeted from the air, a government asset that only the state could deploy. Then, within hours, militia on horseback and in vehicles, sweeping into what remained. Men killed, women raped, children killed or taken.
Everywhere they go, they strip the towns and the cities. They down to vandalizing hospitals, universities, even things that have no value get destroyed.
The idea was to exact as much pain and suffering on the people themselves.
This was not incidental violence. The destruction of food, water, and livestock was targeted. The aim was to ensure that survivors could not return.
By the way, the fact that Al Jazeera is doing this, Qatar-owned operation, right? Obviously, there's political posturing happening here between Qatar and UAE, but Qatar isn't clean from blood on its hands. It's got blood on its hands in Africa too. The Congo, for example. They invest a lot in like banks and things like that. Like we've seen it in the Epstein files where Qatar has come up. So, yeah, all of these Gulf states are doing proxy atrocities in Africa, sponsored by the West.
The land would be empty, and that the fighters would have reason to continue because looting was the payment.
So the key to the vicious counterinsurgency mounted by the Bashir regime was impunity.
By the time the international
Hi, Noisy. Do you still think Kamala would have done this same thing? What do you mean? Kamala committed genocide.
national community named what it was watching, the U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell used the word genocide before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee in September 2004. More than 1 million people had already been displaced.
Who cares about the war in Iran, bro? Kamala committed genocide. Like, who gives a shit? Seriously. Like, why do you keep bringing up... Why do we think about Kamala as anything other than a war criminal?
The International Criminal Court's work on Darfur has been slow, and it was only recently that the first accused person was brought to trial.
Ali Mohammed Ali Abdul Rahman was found guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity, including murder, torture, and orchestrating rape.
The rural homelands of the Fur, Masalit, and Zagawa in North and West Darfur were, in large areas, empty.
So many of the same key actors who were involved in the violence and the massacres of 25 years ago are there today.
The so-called Janjaweed, who were recruited in the early 2000s, have now grown up and they've morphed into something more formal called the Rapid Support Forces, and they are at war with the Sudanese government right now.
In the city of Al-Fasher a few months ago, when they overran the city, having subjected it to a starvation siege, they committed the most appalling, systematic, ethnically targeted massacres, killing civilians wantonly.
Yeah, I've watched all of these videos. If you haven't paid attention to this, you should. Because it is massacre after massacre. Why do I watch this, right? Like, I don't get some enjoyment watching this. After seeing what's happened in Gaza, I find it very important to witness this. Very important to witness all of this. Because, like, who else is going to? Who else is going to? Hey, Platinum, welcome. We have to do it, guys. We have to do it. Yeah, it's sickening. It's brutal. But it's happening with our government support around the West, you know? It's real. This stuff is happening. These people are mass murdering. Like, it's not a joke. We can't be disconnected from this. We got to find our humanity. We got to find our strength. We got to swallow those concrete pills and harden up and just watch it. Just watch it, because you have to understand the world we live in. It is not your 9 to 5. It is worse, much, much worse than that. 3 unalived in USA at food festival. USA not the place to be. What happened? Was there a shooting or something? Kovi shared some crazy ass fucking videos with me too. Kovi shared some crazy videos with me, man.
عندنا جيراننا ذاته أبوه أو الولد كبير.
I feel the same. Watching the videos made me feel that I can't support Israel or Palestine. You should go to archivegenocide.com. I just think you learned the wrong lesson from it. Basa boom. It's the craziest thing to say. Israel committing genocide on the Palestinians, and this guy's like, oh, I can't support Palestinian self-determination. Crazy.
الشلوت ده عامل يوم والله عنده 3 بنات وولد واحد كمان قاموا شالوا البت الكبيرة بنته.
Noisy, I speak like you live in the US. Bro, the US is... we all know about the US. We all know about the US.
عشان هو يتكلم ردوا طلقة كده حلته تمام. بدون ما أعيش بس ردوا طلقة شالوا البت. شو الشفعة من تحت أمهاتهم.
See this Basa Boom person? Probably, if they're in the US, they probably voted for Kamala Harris.
يقتلوا الناس قدام أمهاتهم.
Before the RSF entered the city, they had surrounded it for 18 months. Not to destroy it militarily, to exhaust it, to starve it, to ensure that when the assault came, the population would be too weak to flee, too weak to resist, too malnourished to survive what...
You're from Sweden? Honestly, that is not surprising at all. How the fuck can you watch a genocide and go, oh, actually, I'm going to sit this one out. I'm going to be on the fence. That is just the most ridiculous sort of bigotry that you'll ever see. What a crazy thing to say.
What followed.
العلاجات بقت ما المستشفيات بقت ما الحياة بقت مدمرة. أنا تعبت أصلا في الشارع لمن قربت أشهد. الجنايد نزل في المحسن عادل. يعني قربت الجنايد ينزل عادل إلا قعدت تحت.
The UN fact-finding mission documented what they found on the ground in those first days. Mass killings at documented sites, at the university, at the hospital, at the exit routes, at the earthen berms the RSF had built to trap civilians trying to flee.
What do you mean they both have so much hate for each other? It's like, it's such a European fucking thing to say. Europe went to other people's houses and killed all of those people, took their land, and then they're like, oh, they hate us so much. What do you mean, bro? That's Palestine. A bunch of Europeans went there, took their homes, and then now they're taking more of their land and committing genocide. What the fuck are you talking about? Of course the Palestinians hate the settlers because they're killing them and taking their land. Are you just like, have you joined on the
Incoming raid detected. Thank you, Raiders. Welcome. Hope you stick around.
Hey,
and hit that
Ecoplex.
follow button.
Welcome, Ecoplex. Welcome. Like, it's like, I said this the other day, it's like watching Game of Thrones from like season 7. What the fuck is that? This is the craziest shit. Hey, Ecoplex. How are you? Welcome in, everybody. Thank you so much for the raid. I appreciate all of you. I hope you had a great stream. Come on in. We're learning a little bit about what's happening in Sudan, and then after that, we're going to talk about Jerusalem a little bit.
عشان أنا الليل ما بنوم أنا بقوم زي جارية زين منونة. يا هو دكتور نفسي قعدت معه وشرح لي يعني أنا من أجي أقعد مع ناس المدرسة حتى زي ذا يطلعوني أنا مجنونة يطلعوني أنا ما بعرف أتكلم.
Survivors describe what the fighters were saying as they moved through the city. Is there anyone Zagawa among you? If we find Zagawa, we will kill them all. These were not battlefield statements. They were instructions, spoken aloud to crowds of civilians, by fighters conducting door-to-door searches. In February 2026, the Independent International Fact-Finding Mission for Sudan published its report. Its title, Hallmarks of Genocide in El Fasher.
But there was no action from the rest of the world to meaningfully stop this.
How crazy, right? Like Germany committed the genocide against the Jews, killed 6 million Jews, and then Germany went the ones to lose land. Instead of integrating all of those Jews back into Europe, they ethnically cleansed and genocided the Palestinians. It's the craziest shit. And then people sit here and go October the 7th. It's like, what are you doing?
Violence.
The campaign also moved through leadership. Khamis Abdallah Abakar had spent his life in Darfur. He fought in the Masalit resistance during the First Darfur War, rose to command with the Sudan Liberation Movement, survived Bashir's prisons, and in 2021, after signing a peace agreement, became governor of West Darfur. When the RSF and allied Arab militias...
But that's Western colonial thinking, right? Like from the time the Portuguese, labeled blackness as inferior to whiteness, and then the doctrine of discovery basically said white Christian men can take land that they discover. That hasn't changed. It's a sense of white privilege to take other people's shit and then act like it's theirs, because they never considered those people in those lands human beings. It's just the most insane shit that we allow that stuff to happen. The world needs to change. It needs like a real shift, man. Like, this mentality of white people can just do anything they want has to change, and that white lives are worth more than like black and brown lives or wherever else. Like, it has to change. Europe has to be held to account for its crimes. America has to be held to account for its crimes. The U.S. has to be held to account for its crimes. Canada for its genocide on its native population. It's just the most insane shit. How can you cause so much pain and suffering around the world for 600 years and still continue? And there's no accountability.
Swept through El Janina in June 2023, killing hundreds of Masalit civilians, burning neighborhoods, leaving bodies in the streets. Abakar did what Governor...
Some motherfucker yesterday, guys, some idiot yesterday came into the chat. I think they were on YouTube, and they were like, "Oh, just because they spread, viruses or sickness across the world, it's not like they knew they had the sickness. It wasn't their fault that they were sick and they spread disease. Disease was the number one killer in these areas. So why is it their fault that they spread disease?" Bro, the narrative about what Europe has done to the world, and especially like white supremacists talking about it, it's like the worst fucking thing.
Are supposed to do. He went on television at 11:13 in the morning on June 14th, speaking by phone to El Hadath TV from somewhere inside a disintegrating city. He described what was happening with precision. Civilians are being killed indiscriminately and in large numbers. He called for international intervention. He said the army had not left its base to protect civilians. He named the RSF. The interview lasted 10 minutes. It would be his last public statement. Within 5 hours, Abakar had been captured. Half an hour later...
Yeah, this TP person, let me just say this, and I think we'll leave it there. European colonization was and still is the largest man-made human suffering ever. Yeah, other people colonized other people. Other people enslaved other people. Europe did it on an industrial scale for far longer, and it continues to do it. It's not cherry-picking, buddy. It is a fact. What Europe is doing is the largest man-made human suffering in the history of humanity. Do not come here and challenge. You're in the wrong place.
Later, he was dead. According to Masalit activists with knowledge of the final moments, Abakar was given the chance to retract his genocide statement. He refused. The RSF's response came the following day. They condemned the assassination.
No, buddy. 600 years. 600 years, buddy. 600 years of European colonization. And it still continues today. You are uneducated about your own ancestors, or you're being blissfully ignorant because you don't want to acknowledge what your ancestors did. You don't seem to know your history. That is far from the truth, buddy. Far from the truth. you're Iranian. I don't believe that for 1 second. I don't believe that for 1 second.
Of the man their commander was filmed detaining. They pointed the finger at what they called outlaws. They described the violence in El Geneina as tribal conflict.
But no Sudanese and no observer of Sudan was remotely convinced by that line.
This is not improvised.
Oh, well, I'm Irish. My people never colonized, and I know the history of colonials. Oh, buddy. See, this is the thing. Irish people, if you're in chat, if you're in chat and you're Irish, just know that when, for example, the Brits and the French went to the Caribbean, they took Irish people with them as indentured laborers, and they took black slaves. Irish people were allowed to have black slaves. Irish people were allowed to have land, but they were still second-class citizens, but Irish people were allowed to have land and have slaves. This is the thing they don't tell you, right? Is the fact that Irish people were slavers too. Irish people also who were in the United States of America when the British were being fought back, when the British were being fought against by white supremacists in the U.S., leading up to 1776, those Irish people fought under the umbrella of white supremacy to continue to enslave black people. But he doesn't know his own fucking history.
Denial. It is a scripted response. And the script has been used before.
هسه عم قلت ولا أمي أبوي وينش ولا قاعد بيجي الأسوأ لو كبرت يعني ضروري لازم تعرف أبوها وين وأنا ما أعرفها بس قاعد تضرب.
Yeah, dumbass. Slavic people haven't been considered white. Are you stupid? Slavic people were never considered white. Slavic people are still not considered white. Slavic people only have a temporary visa into whiteness. Like, don't be dumb.
أنا أقول له هو مات أقول لهم شنو.
Yeah, but the thing is, it wasn't just European enslavement of Africans. It was all the genocides too. And it wasn't just in Africa. It was in Asia too. And the Caribbean. It was in South America. It was everywhere. No, it's not hate for white people, bro. It is the fact of history. It is white supremacy. I think you are just coping and don't want to learn about your ancestors' history. That's the problem here. Slavic people have never been considered white. But they get pulled into whiteness. They get pulled into the umbrella of whiteness when it suits fucking Western Europe. It's stupid.
ما بكون ماسرينه أو بيكون مرق أو ما مرق.
It's people on TikTok. It's people on TikTok, wine grower.
If we are to interrupt the slide into mass inter-ethnic violence and genocide in many parts of the world, we need to attend to the way in which global power has been stolen along with global wealth by these apex political...
Yeah, they're not. They weren't considered white, bro. Even Aristotle considered Slavic people slaves. Aristotle has written about Slavic people as slaves because of their climate. See, this is what I mean. You're uneducated about this history.
Kleptocratic predators around the world.
Yeah, get rid of them. It's a waste of fucking time. These people don't know their history.
Leading many
it's tough to talk to people like this.
Across the Middle East on all sides of the divide.
It's worth noting that Darfur is widely described as genocide in political and advocacy discourse, including by the U.S. government and many Western parliaments, and treated as such in ICC charging documents, though not every international body has formally recognized it as genocide. Darfur was not a war between peoples. It was a war made through peoples, engineered by a state that found an existing fault line and poured accelerant on it.
أرجع بلدي والله اشتقت لي.
The two books every white person should read, the two books I recommend for white people to read are Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram X. Kendi, and also The Counter-Revolution of 1776 by Gerald Horne. Just read those books, okay? There's even a fucking documentary on Netflix that you can watch. Just go, learn about your history, learn about what Europe did to the world, and it's just a small part of what Europe did to the world. To sit here and deny what's happened to black and brown people at the hands of fucking white supremacy. Don't gaslight me, buddy. You will lose.
بلدي وبيتي ناس دول بيكونوا يتنهوا ما في زول أصلا أنا اللي بعرفهم ده ما بلقى فيهم زول بلقى بس ذكريات من البيت ذكريات ناس اللي كانوا معاي إنه ما من ربي ده وبدعي ليل ونهار إنه يا ربي يصلح البلد والبلد ترجع زي ما كان والأهل يرجعوا واللي عنده أبوه مبقوت يرجع عليه اللي عنده جناه مبقوت أملي بالله قوي بس.
I want to live in a world without genocide. I think if we're going to act collectively at an international level.
Is denial worse than silence? I think silence is worse. At least these bigots, you can see them coming. You know, like Malcolm X said, and even MLK, Martin Luther King, talked about white liberals. And I agree with both of them. It's the ignorance of it all.
There are many whites who are trying to solve the problem, but you never see them going under the label of liberals. That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere. He's the most deceitful. He's like a fox, and a fox is always more dangerous in the forest than the wolf. You can see the wolf coming. You know what he's up to, but the fox will fool you. He comes at you with his mouth shaped in such a way that even though you see his teeth, you think he's smiling and you take him for a friend.
That's the silence. The silence is fox-esque behavior. The denial is easy. The denial's easy because you can at least refute these things with data and the real world and knowledge. But the people who stay silent know, or at least acknowledge what's going on, but they don't want to speak up for risk to self. And those people, you got to be very careful of those people. Hey, Lava, been a couple of days. How are you? How are you, matey? I get what he's saying, but I would honestly fuck Fox up, no question. Yeah, but I find it easier. I find it easier to identify the bigots, right? The moment there'll be people in chat who are like, yep, you're right about this history, European colonization, blah, blah, blah. And the moment I talk about American imperialism and I start talking about Barack Obama and, Kamala Harris being part of the structure of oppression, and those leaders were actually part of the American imperialist machine, they switch off. Because they can't see the whole how these collaborators, or as I like to call Indians who are part of these system house curries, perpetuated the violence of white supremacy. They don't see that what people like Kamala Harris are those black and brown faces in high places who aren't going to help us. As Ruha said, black faces in high places are not going to save us. And it applies to brown faces too, because they've allowed themselves to be conscripted into positions of power that seeks to maintain the oppressive status quo. And often they allow themselves to be used. There's a lady in the ACT party in Aotearoa, New Zealand, Paramjit Parmar, a brown face, Indian, a Kiwi Indian lady. And she is so she is almost weaponized. Her brownness is weaponized against the Maori community here. Her brownness is weaponized against the indigenous Maori. Because she's brown, she's Indian, and she represents always. She is the face of the most anti-Maori policies always. And David Seymour, who's the leader of that bigoted party, knows exactly what he's doing. Weaponizing brown people's faces. And these brown people are happy to do it. They love it because they make money and they get power. It's the most disgusting fucking thing. True story equals she emailed me personally in my previous role in NZ trying to see if I was dissatisfied with my institution's activity to honor Te Tiriti obligations. Effing disgusting. Yeah, of course. You think DSA talking points, no cops, no jails, no borders, etc. are going to backfire? Nah, bro. Stick to it. The moment you make a compromise on policy, that's the moment you lose. You can't. The biggest mistake this Abdul El Sayed guy made was try and coddle the liberal voter by saying that, oh, he endorsed Kamala Harris. That is one of the biggest ones he made. And the other big one is he tried to compromise his position on Haley Stevens by saying, like, he compromised a little bit of ground by saying, hey, I don't like hateful rhetoric or whatever, while being, and then immediately after it's great, right, that he thinks that way. Immediately after he compromised, they started attacking him hatefully. Haley Stevens' campaign. You know, Zoran Mamdani right now is being banned by some families to attend the September 11th the September 11th memorial. Some families are saying that Mamdani can't come. Bro, the guy was 10 when September 11th happened. It's racism, guys. It's bigotry in the most pure sense of the word. That's what it is. Don't compromise to bigots. Don't do it.
When the Crusader army conquered Jerusalem, subjugating its population, Muslims, Jews, and Christians, for more than 88 years, before they lost it in a single day. When Salah ad-Din's army surrounded the city, crushed the Crusaders, and then opened Jerusalem to the world. So why did the Crusaders fail to build their everlasting kingdom in Jerusalem? And will Zionism meet the same fate?
Interesting question. Interesting angle. That's why I wanted to watch this.
My guest today, political philosopher, Professor Roy Casagranda. Professor, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I want to talk to you about a lot of things, but what fascinates me about you as a teacher, as a communicator, is your ability to make history, even the driest parts of it, feel alive, feel like a political thriller that you're watching on Netflix. And I'm really curious as to where this desire, where this love of history and storytelling comes from for you.
Yeah, I'm not even sure I know the answer. When I was a kid, my father would tell me stories, mostly about his family and his own life. And I think I fell in love with stories in that moment. And then just it evolved into this love for history. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I love sci-fi. But at the end of the day, sci-fi has to have an element of realism, or fantasy has to have an element of realism. But history has no logic or rationale. It's completely insane, crazy. So it's the story that has no realism limits, strangely enough. And I think that's what's always fascinated me. Humans have no limit on how insane they can behave or how ignorant they can be.
Yeah, there's plenty of examples of that in history. Yeah. But it's interesting because you say that history has no rationality to it, and yet it's inherent in us as human beings to look to the past and look for patterns, and look for clues and look for guidance. What do you think that's about?
So I've always resisted this idea that history repeats itself, but the problem is it does. The moment in my head right now is 1933, and all my 1933 alarm bells are going off.
So I want to take you much further back than that. But then also we'll come back to the early 20th century and
if you don't know what happened in 1933, I can't fucking help you.
Take a look at what was happening in the world at that moment. You have a very famous series of lectures on the history of the Crusades.
Yeah.
And it's about 6 hours long, and it's fascinating. There are so many colorful details and colorful figures that you go through along the way. When you look at the history of the Crusades that deeply, what does it tell you about the world that we live in today?
Yeah, one of the big...
Okay, I'll stop being a dick. 1933 was when Hitler came to power in Germany and started annexing land and, all that stuff.
Big lessons, I think, that is screaming at us in this moment is don't allow yourself to be pitted against one another. You have to work together as
Salam,
a group.
I read good.
If there's a common cause and a common interest, spending your time backstabbing your potential allies is probably a really big mistake. The other thing I think that stands out for me is religious fanaticism is going to create a bunch of suffering and misery and pain and death.
And I think, look, fanaticism in any sense is going to create pain, suffering, capitalist fanaticism as well. As I've said, I think capitalism is a religion in itself. I think capitalism is a religion. And if we're truly about separating church and state, then we should be separating capitalism from government as well. That is when we're purely separating church and state. Right now, we haven't separated church and state because it's not just the orthodox religions or the religions as we know it that are embedded into government. It's capitalism too. So, like, what this guy is missing is the role capitalism plays in creating fanaticism to keep society divided and fighting each other. So the bit that he doesn't address is the bit that matters, I believe, the most, which is capitalism and the extraction and concentration of wealth with a few people. That is always going to be the cause of all human suffering until we abolish it.
And in that way, I think those are the two really big lessons that the world should be learning from those moments, but clearly isn't.
And I think when you think about religious fanaticism from a European perspective, the Crusades is kind of the hallmark of that, is where you have state power and religion marrying together to create a force that then tries to conquer other parts of the world. Where does that idea come from? Where does the driving force for the Crusades begin?
I think there's a couple of things going on.
Hey, thank you, Mama Sunshine. Thank you so much.
Maybe more than a couple of things. One of them is unfortunately,
Thank you for the follow.
The Vikings are become Christian, and Europe is trying to figure out a way to integrate them in, and it's not going well.
Right, because these guys are fighters.
They're fighters. They're fighters and they're merchants, and they're fishermen and they're dairy farmers, and they're trying to figure out how to integrate them, and they don't want to live in a cold environment anymore. The problem is, there's still all this energy
Thank you so much, Mama
their
Sunshine.
pagan
I'm good,
raiding days.
Hey, you asked a question before. I forgot to answer. Hey, friend, how are you? How is your family and fur baby? Ginger is at home. He's healing. He's healing. He's got his cone of shame on. He's on the mend. He's on the mend, Mama Sunshine.
And Europe is trying to figure out a way to dispense with some of that. And one way to do that is to simply get a bunch of people to go on the Crusades. They don't all have to be Normans. They don't all have to be Vikings, but you want some, obviously. But it's it's like a pressure valve. You need to release it.
Yeah, I did mention Stamped from the beginning. Yes.
Because there's too many nobles, there's too many knights, there's too many warriors. So that's one of the tensions going on. Another one is there was sort of a geographical envy. So when, in the aftermath of the Prophet Muhammad's death, Abu Bakr launches an army into...
I think books like Stamped from the Beginning and The Counter-Revolution of 1776 are great summaries made by extremely educated people on the subject. Kendi and Horn, like these guys have spent their whole life just studying this. It's we watched a Gerald Horn lecture the other day. The guy is like a walking library on this stuff. And I think two people you should definitely think about following. The other person, obviously, we all know through what's been happening over the last 3 years with the genocide in Gaza is Ta-Nehisi Coates. Ta-Nehisi Coates is awesome too. He's a great guy to listen to, and his thought process is so good.
The Persian Empire invades Palestine, and that army fighting the Persian Empire goes and conquers Syria. And it sets off a series of events that by the time we get to the year 711, at that point, the majority of what used to be the Roman Empire, and maybe not quite the majority in terms of like square kilometers, but about half, ended up under Muslim rule.
Ta-Nehisi Coates' book is called The Message, his latest book. I don't know if it's his latest book anymore, but it was his latest book like 2 years ago. But that's pretty good. The Message is really, really good.
And by population, though, it ruled over the majority of the world's Christians. And I think there was this moment where the rest of Europe felt like it had been severed from that chunk of Christendom and kind of always had this romanticism of how do we get some of that land back. So there was this drive that Christian Europeans had to take back that land. And Jerusalem got into the crosshairs because two things. One, the Roman Empire was falling apart and was being hammered by the Turks. And the Romans literally went to Rome because they didn't own Rome anymore. And which is, that's kind of embarrassing to be called the Roman Empire and you don't own Rome. And they asked the Roman Pope for help. And the Roman Pope said, we'll help you. And so in that moment, it framed what was happening with the Roman Empire.
Is this like the kind of time when Rome kind of split into like two and the capital of, I guess, Eastern Rome became Constantinople? Emperor Constantine?
As a religious war. And then the other part, once the religious war kicked in, the other part was, oh, well, if this is a religious war, we need to get Jerusalem because that's the holiest city in Christendom.
Hey, Ashraf.
And was there a desire beforehand?
Hey, Prof.
For Jerusalem, that Jerusalem needs to be Christian? Was that something that was already in the air and then this was the moment that galvanized it? Or was this kind of a spur of the moment thing?
No, I mean, because they wanted to frame it as a religious war, then Jerusalem had to become the centerpiece. The tragedy, I guess, historically in that moment too, was
the Roman Empire split before this? I see.
Was the Roman Empire was actually allied with the Fatimids, and the Fatimids ruled Egypt.
Yeah, the eastern part lasted way longer, didn't it? Yeah. When did the split happen? This is I guess a bit of a gap for me. The Roman Empire. Although I've watched a lot of like documentaries and stuff on it, it was just so long and it was around for so long and did so much. it's tough to understand it completely.
The Fatimids and the Romans together hated the Seljuks, and they hated the Sultanate of Rum, which was in Anatolia, pushing the Romans back. And so they were working together as allies. And so as the Crusades are launching, the Fatimids actually took Jerusalem from the Seljuks.
Who were the Turks? Yeah.
So then the Crusaders arrive. They're technically faced off against their friend now, because a friend of a friend is a friend, right? And then
a really, really good book to read about this is Othman's Dream. I think it's Othman's Dream. Hold on. Othman's Dream. Yeah. Osman's Dream, the history of the Ottoman Empire. Osman's Dream, the history of the Ottoman Empire, kind of covers a little bit of this. But the Ottoman Empire stuff is really interesting to read as well.
of course, they don't care and they fight them anyway, because in their mind, they're still Muslim. So who cares? It's worth pointing out that Christian pilgrims could go to...
I didn't retain much of the 350 episodes. Holy shit. This is what I mean, man. Whenever someone talks about the freaking Roman Empire, it's like you got to spend like 3 years just getting to the end of it. And then you're like, what happened last year? Like, where was I last year?
Jerusalem anytime they wanted to. In fact, half the city was Christian. So there was no need to take the city if you wanted to go
hey, Auntie Wash,
do a pilgrimage there. The city was never closed off to Christians.
Right, but it was more
the History of China podcast is like that too.
You're right. There was this sense of we should rule it because we're Christians and it's our holy city, as opposed to, you can go visit, you can go live there, like just whatever you want.
The Crusaders then gather this army and they start marching towards Jerusalem.
Hey Dane,
what happens once they get there?
What up, home
when
slice?
the Crusaders start, it's a mess. There's the first wave of Crusaders are actually peasants,
hey, Hatab,
and they're plundering Hungary, and the Hungarians actually put them down. And then
I used to think Roman history was boring because of my experience learning about it in school. But as an adult, revisiting it was amazing. You're basically learning about 1,000 years of history. Yeah, dude. Like, I think those documentaries, the really, slow, terrible documentaries, it turned me off on learning about Rome. I prefer watching than reading, but I read as well. I try and read as much as possible. But yeah, I have so much information still to go through, even just in the books that I have. How do I spend a year wasting my time? Listen to Roman history. Fuck me, I have cancer. Oh my God, Cicero. I didn't know that. Have you said that? Have you shared that with chat before? I don't know. I'm so sorry if you have. I didn't realize. I don't remember where I have saved. If you don't mind, like, no, I'm not going to dig deeper. But, I didn't realize. I'm so sorry. I hope things are going positively. Learning some channels I have shared, I see. Learning about early Christianity as a sort of rebellious revolutionary movement that eventually became co-opted by the empire is, yeah. The whole Dark Ages was just Europeans crying about losing the Roman Empire. Oh my gosh. Yeah, but you couldn't cram all that into a school. I'd be 30 in grade 12. Yeah. I find history fascinating, never boring. It depends who the narrator is on the documentaries. Too much history, hard out. Cicero, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. Dope stick. True, I love fucking with Christians' heads with that one minute they think I'm a Luciferian, that the next I reveal that I'm more Christian than the post Nicaea Christians. I was very lucky to have a great history teacher. Made all the difference. Where he go, I recognize his voice. I can't remember his name. This guy's name. I'm playing it. This guy's name. What is his name? Roy Casagranda. Roy Casagranda.
Then, as the Crusaders are showing up in the Roman Empire, the Roman Emperor, even though he asked for this, is like having to deal with these.
I'm doing better than I deserve. Almost a year, and I'm still here. It is stage 4 breast cancer, but metastasized to the sacrum bone. Oh my gosh, Cicero. Keep fighting. Wait, I don't know why you're saying I'm doing better than I deserve. You deserve to be free of cancer. Like, everyone does. Never ever put yourself down. Please don't put yourself down.
It's not clear whether they're soldiers or brigands. They're sort of bordering on that line, and he's trying to get them out of the Roman Empire as quickly as he can. And when they get to Antioch, which is the first big city they conquer, when they take it, they set a precedent. And that precedent is they massacre the population within. And that becomes their method of conquest.
Right.
And they kept doing that over and over again. And foolishly, people kept surrendering. You'd think after a while you'd learn the lesson. Well,
and they keep going, and then eventually they're taking one city after another, and that with this kind of terror that is probably preceding them.
Yes. And so by the time they get to Jerusalem, they
today.
don't have siege equipment. They don't have any way to actually get into the city. So they surround the city. Jerusalem itself has springs in it. And then outside of it, it's arid, desolate. So it's really difficult to maintain a siege on it. That's why the city is the city that it is. And they even had little farm plots inside the city to supplement the stored food. So they can withstand a really long siege. The Crusaders surround it, and they begin negotiating with the Fatimid defenders, the Egyptian defenders, because they don't have the ability to capture the city through force. And then the Genovese show up, and the Genovese brought siege equipment.
Wait, is it Genovese or Genoese? Are the Genovese and the Genoese different?
And who are the Genovese?
Italy was a bunch of independent city-states. So Genoa in English, but Genova in Italian.
They're the same people.
Italy is a boot. It's on the France side of the boot as opposed to the Adriatic side of the boot. And it was in competition with Venice for trade and trying to dominate the Mediterranean. And they show up with siege equipment, and they haul it across land. And all of a sudden, the Crusaders are in this fight in a serious way. And they attack and capture a section of the wall. They can't finish the job because the Egyptians were still holding on to the citadel.
The Fatimids, who were their allies at some point.
Well, yeah. It was shocking to the Fatimids when the Crusaders start the siege, because they're like, no, I thought we were in this together. And so the Fatimids realize, oh, okay, we're being backstabbed. And so they put up a fight. I'm blanking out on the Egyptian general's name, but he ends up going to Ascalon and continuing the fight. So he's not surrendering because he's giving up. He's just surrendering for strategic purposes to save his men's lives and then continue the fight from Ascalon.
And so the Crusaders at this point, once the Fatimids leave the city, they enter Jerusalem. And then what happens?
They go to the Muslim and Jewish quarters and just begin slaughtering everybody. They're killing children. They're just murdering everybody. So many of the Jewish and Muslim inhabitants decide that if they're going to die, they might as well die in a place of worship praying. So the Jews go to synagogues, and a lot of Muslims go to the mosques, because, what else are you going to do? It's a desperate situation. You know you're going to die, but they're trying to figure out what to do. And in the Jewish quarter, the Christians piled wood around the synagogues and set them on fire and burned the people inside to death.
Oh shit!
In the Muslim quarter, they wanted to convert the mosques into churches, so their goal was to then break in and just slaughter the people inside, which is what they ultimately did. One of the Crusaders.
Oh yeah, the most peaceful religion on earth, right? Christianity. Oh my gosh, bro, that's horrific. Oh my gosh. I swear it looks like your facial hair grew a little bit since the stream started. It's potentially did happen, yeah. This is the Judeo-Christian shared heritage that far-right racists keep talking about then? Yeah, it is. Bro could do a time-lapse beard grow video in a day. It grows quickly.
His name is Tancred. He was a Norman from Italy, so he's a Viking. He's a Viking descent. He was one of those guys who was always looking for the edge, and thinking out of the box, being innovative. He comes to Antioch and is there when the massacre takes place, and he stays with the army all the way to Jerusalem. He changes his mind about the massacring and begins trying to save Muslims. And at one point, he comes upon a group of Muslims and he runs up to them and he says, "This is my banner." And he hands them the banner and he says, "If any Crusaders approach you, tell them that you're with me and that you're under my protection. I'm gonna go get more people and bring them to the banner. So just stay here and just tell them you're with me." So he goes to find more Muslims to bring to this, what he thinks is a safe spot. By the time he gets back, they're dead. The Crusaders murdered them. His banner is laying on the ground covered in blood. There was nothing, like he completely failed, but he gets proclaimed as the Prince of Galilee, and then Godfrey becomes the ruler of Jerusalem. But
yep, the guy who gave them the flag of death will probably receive sainthood in this story.
But never takes the title king, and because in his mind only Jesus could have been the king of Jerusalem. And he's the king because he was for less than a year. He dies and he's replaced by Baldwin the First.
Does he become a king?
And he is crowned king.
Okay, he's like
Baldwin. Is Baldwin the First the leper dude, the guy with leprosy? Is that him?
The kingdom of Jerusalem, and he's like, "Yeah, we're good. I'm obviously a king." And this is his way of also clarifying we're not part of the Roman Empire.
Right.
We are our own kingdom.
So they capture. They are successful. They get Jerusalem. This kingdom begins, and they separate themselves from the Roman Empire. They're not under the rulership of it. But then they have this brand new kingdom, and they obviously need to figure out how to survive.
Yeah.
How to arm themselves, how to make friends. They're in a new region, new part of town. What do they do?
I just Googled it. You were right. I was. Oh, okay. So it is that guy? Okay.
Yeah, they have a problem. They don't have enough manpower and they don't have enough money. They don't have a navy. They don't have a basis for an economy. So they need to figure all this stuff out. And they just wiped out a potential labor force. Right? So how do they make this work? And what they decide is forts. They need to build forts. As they're building these forts, they need labor. So they actually they take Christian Arabs and put them to work, but they also start bringing in Muslim Arabs and bringing them in as a cheap labor force. And so the irony...
Similar to me, I'm 76 years old now, and by last year, I barely talk to my remaining family every couple of years. When I learned this, I contacted one brother that has very challenging medical problems, and all of a sudden, his son, my nephew, has come to my rescue more than once. I am blessed. Oh my gosh, Cicero. That is very nice to hear. Yeah, it's kind of things like this that bring you closer to family, isn't it?
Is the Arabs are now building the structures that are designed to keep the Arabs from coming back in.
Right.
Hey, Luciferian.
That's not going to have any parallels down the line.
None whatsoever.
So what is happening in the region at the time? You mentioned that there was this rivalry between different Muslim empires.
The leper king dude, the leper king, the leper is that what he was? The leper king, that guy. That there's so much. Just all sorts of fairy tales about that guy. Honestly, but his story is a little bit more mundane and than what's like, done by Hollywood. Hey, Dusty Monk, welcome. Yeah. So, a good person to learn about, actually. If that guy is the leper king, if that guy is the leper king,
the Fatimids and the Seljuks, and they hated each other and they were competing over land. Kind of part of how the Crusaders were able to kind of come in. And so I also think about where Jerusalem is and where Rome is, and the Crusaders have marched a long way to get there.
It's very long.
And they obviously, you have to think about supply lines and you have to think about all of these kinds of things. Does that become an issue for them now that they're in this fortress on one side of the map?
Yes.
Legavena, I don't know why the message you sent was blocked. It's so weird. I don't know why it was blocked. I had to approve it. 1099 to 1291, 199 year of French, Teuton, Italian, Brit, Crusader, Levant armies fighting to Muslims from Mamluks. Is it Mamluks or Mamelukes? Take over Acre after Eastern Romans rip 1453 ad. The leper king is apparently Baldwin the Fourth, not the first one. Oh, I see.
But they get help, and they get help from Venice.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
So,
Baldwin sounded familiar, but I didn't know which number.
Venice is jealous that Genova got in so early into the game. So the Venetians show up and they go, look, you need a navy. You need a navy to trade. You need a navy to move supplies and troops around. And the Fatimids have a big navy.
I'm just going to use the bathroom. We'll be back. I'm putting on a filler. I'm going to be pausing the live on TikTok. Otherwise it'll just shut it down. I'm just going to pause it, okay? What are we listening to? It's called Is Israel Repeating the Crusaders' Fatal Mistake? Kia ora, Ngeru. I'll be back, guys. 2 minutes. I'm back. Hi. Hello.
You have no chance against them. It just so happens we have a name. And the Crusaders sign on. And so instantaneously they have this already established, well-built navy that can rival the Fatimids. But
yeah, I know that movie, Dusty Monk. I know that movie. It's got like it's got a couple of important historical figures in that.
There's a catch. Their favorite city on earth was Alexandria. So the Venetians, the Crusaders didn't understand this. The Venetians are willing to fight the Fatimids. They don't want to fight the Fatimids because Egypt is Venice's prize.
Right. They still want to go vacation there in the summer.
Exactly. The beaches are lovely.
I don't know if you've been. They're actually pretty stunning.
Yeah.
And then so the Crusaders have this external force that comes in and is able to kind of provide them with a navy that then secures them. And so does that mean that they're stable? Are they able to kind of sit back and say, okay, great, we've won the war? And
so there's lots of stuff going on. One of the problems that they have is they're not making it economically.
Free Palestine.
So a lot of them resort to raiding, and the raiding supplements their income. And of course, it's infuriating their Muslim neighbors because the Muslim neighbors are like, look, you captured it, you've carved out your little state, be done with it.
Just calm down.
Just calm down. And they're like, no, we want to raid. The most famous of the raiders, of course, is Renaud de Chatillon. Renaud de Chatillon he was a special person. Like, he was in a category all unto himself. He became the ruler of Antioch, and he decided it would be really cool to attack Cyprus and plunder the island, pillage and burn it. And so he just went on a rampage, just tears the place up, goes back to Antioch. The Roman army shows up. Why? Cyprus belonged to the Roman Empire. On paper, he belongs to the Roman Empire. On paper, he's the governor of Antioch in the Roman Empire. And the Roman emperor's like, what did you do? I'm going to kill you.
They send the human resources manager, and he's like, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Okay, Renaud de Chatillon is during Baldwin the Fourth. Okay, Renaud de Chatillon is during Baldwin the Fourth. Check me. If there was a Renaud de Chatillon the Fourth, then I don't fucking know. If they're talking about Renaud de Chatillon the First, yeah, that's the one. Scary, yes.
And Renaud laid on the ground, just completely prostrates himself in front of the Roman emperor and begs him for mercy. And the Roman emperor gives him mercy for reasons I don't understand. And he continues on this rampage for a while, gets captured and ends up in prison for years. He's released and goes back to raiding and just terrorizing the area.
Right.
And to the point where he actually attempted to capture Medina. He sent a fleet into the Red Sea with the goal of landing near Yanbu and going inland until he got to Medina and sacking Medina. And his goal was to dig up the Prophet Muhammad's bones and bring them to Jerusalem.
Oh, wow.
And Salahuddin's brother, the governor of Egypt, discovers this, and he sends the Egyptian fleet from the Mediterranean through into the Red Sea. They hunt down the Crusader fleet, sink it, capture the Crusaders, and prevent the attack on Medina. On top of that, they kept invading Egypt. King Amalric invaded Egypt 5 times. Like, he was obsessed.
Right. And so at some point, the rest of the region starts talking about this kingdom and was like,
Michael Richards, welcome.
Something needs to be done. And so by the time that Salahuddin is
he's great.
in charge of Egypt
awesome.
And he's gathered this army and he's on his way, what creates this moment that, because I believe that there was several other attempts by other people to try and get Jerusalem back and they all fail and things don't quite work out. But what is happening in this moment that allows Salahuddin to succeed?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because Saladin does something nobody else could do, and he did it in such a way that it kind of stuck. It's the beginning and the end for the Crusader states. So Saladin is on accident the guy in that moment, right? He wasn't even a Turk; he was a Kurd.
Saladin was a Kurd. Whoa! I did not know that. Wow. Renaud de Chatillon, half Kurd. Wow. I did not know that.
Uncle Shirkuh. Shirkuh is one of the coolest names ever. Shir means lion, Kuh is mountain. So his name is Lion Mountain. He was short, a little heavy set. He just wanted to fight. He was just a terrible.
He's like the complete inverse of what we think about when we think about Saladin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nur-ad-Din, he's always dressed well. He's constantly going out of his way to talk about prayer, and he's modest. He doesn't refer to himself as Nur-ad-Din. He loved Shirkuh, and Shirkuh talks him into sending soldiers on an expedition to Egypt. And, like the conversation must have gone something like, Amr ibn al-As had 4,000 soldiers. You're only sending me with 2,000 soldiers. Like, it must have been some conversation. Like, how am I supposed to take Egypt from the Fatimids like this? Anyway, long story short, they do 3 expeditions. Shirkuh does 3 expeditions, and he drags Saladin along. Saladin didn't want to do any of them. He on the first one, he said, you could make me the Sultan of Egypt and I still wouldn't go. And Shirkuh goes, it's not a request. This is a order. And he drags Saladin along. And the third time, they not only defeat the Crusaders, they defeat the Fatimids. And Shirkuh becomes the wazir in the Fatimid state. And Shirkuh was wazir for 1 month. He died of tonsillitis, like the dumbest death ever for a warrior. And all of a sudden, Saladin is in this really weird position because he was still young. I think he was 30-something, 31. He's not very old. Yeah, I think he's 31. He doesn't have strong connections. He's a Kurd, so he's not well connected to the Turks. I mean, he has Turkish soldiers who like him and Turkish officers he works with. But all the Turks are thinking in the army, I'll just become the next wazir to replace Shirkuh. And there is a man in the Egyptian bureaucracy who went to Saladin and said, I'm going to use your weakness to get you the wazirship. And Saladin goes, what do you mean? I'm going to go in there and talk about how you don't have any connections. You're not well placed. You're too young. You don't have experience. And that's how I'm going to get you elected to become the next wazir, because everybody's going to think you're going to be easy to manipulate.
Right.
And Saladin
So they're not going to conspire against you.
Yeah. And he goes, okay. And that's what happens. And that's how he becomes the wazir who replaces Shirkuh. And
this is so interesting, guys. I love stuff like this. This is so cool.
So all of a sudden, in that moment, this guy comes out of nowhere and is the top leader of Egypt. And it's surprised. Everybody's shocked. Nur-ad-Din's shocked. Everybody's shocked. King Amalric shocked. Amalric decides, I'm going to reinvade Egypt. And he does a 5th invasion of Egypt. And this time with Roman support, the Romans land. Saladin does an all-in gamble and tries to defend Damiette from being captured by the Romans and the Crusaders. He somehow succeeds, defends the city successfully, and he now is effectively the Sultan of Egypt. I mean, he can't take that title because technically Nur-ad-Din should be the Sultan of Egypt because technically Saladin works for him. And so now there's this new weird tension. Who's in charge? Is it Saladin? Egypt is bigger than Syria, bigger economy, bigger population. He can raise a bigger army than Nur-ad-Din's army. Why would he be subordinate? And in the next few years, there's this back and forth tension that keeps building between the two men. And then Nur-ad-Din comes to believe that Saladin has rebelled against him and is about to order an army be formed to go invade Egypt. And by the way, they have to get through Crusader territory. So they're literally sneaking through Crusader territory to get back and forth between Egypt and Syria. And he's getting ready to form the army. He's told his officers, we're going to go invade Egypt. And he dies of tonsillitis.
He dies of... It's like Lindsey Graham, bro. It's like Lindsey Graham. Oh my gosh. All of that bluster and all of that shit and just cocked it. You know, like the guy is so evil, just wants to attack people, bomb people, and then just died.
What? You're kidding.
No. I think technically it was Quincy, but I don't know the difference between Quincy and tonsillitis. I don't know. Kills two of the greatest Muslim generals of the time period. And later, King Amalric, the Crusader king, dies. And all of a sudden, Saladin's facing this really crazy situation. His two rivals are dead. And the question he's asking is, do I attack the Crusader states while they're trying to figure out who the next leader is, while they're vulnerable, while they're weak?
Or do I go for Syria?
And one of the generals that he had been working with for years, there's a power struggle between Aleppo and Damascus. And that general controlled part of Damascus. He sends for Saladin and he says, I need your help in restoring order. We don't know who the next ruler of Syria should be. Nur-ad-Din's son is too young and he's basically been kidnapped by a eunuch and taken to Aleppo. And so Saladin sneaks cavalry through Crusader territory, shows up in Damascus. Once he's got Damascus, it's just a matter of time before he takes over Syria. And so that's how he becomes the Sultan of Egypt and Syria. The next step is the step that I think is where Saladin proves to be a genius. I don't know what conversation he had in his head, so I'm just imagining. But there must have been a question of, why are the Crusaders doing this?
Hey, Amira.
How can I undermine their motive? And I think he concluded that the Crusaders were acting out of trauma. I'm speculating here. This is just me interpreting Saladin.
Tell me more.
He chooses a route of mercy. He wasn't doing it in the beginning. He was, he wasn't ruthless. He wasn't like slaughtering prisoners or anything like that. But he goes one step beyond the normal limits of mercy. One of his first battles against the Crusaders, once he's the Sultan of Egypt and Syria, is a battle of Monkey-Sade. Monkey-Sade, that's where Renaud de Chatillon shows up. It's Baldwin IV, the leper king. He's too young. He doesn't have any experience. The leprosy isn't helping him any either. So he puts Renaud de Chatillon as the actual commander, and he'll be the symbolic commander.
And this is our rebel who tried to take Cyprus and failed.
Exactly. The murderer, rampage guy. He's literally just been freed from prison. And he takes command of this army. He destroys Saladin's army. Like, it is a humiliating rout. Saladin lost battles. He wasn't a military genius in the sense like he won every battle. And I think in the aftermath of that, he asked himself the question, what makes them such fanatics? Why are they so good in the battlefield? What can I do to undermine that? So as the conflict with they eventually make peace. He signs a peace deal with Baldwin IV, but Renaud can't help himself. And he begins raiding and attacking. He attacks pilgrims on the way to Mecca. He attacks merchant caravans. Eventually, he makes that fleet in Aqaba with the goal of...
This Renaud de Chatillon, oh man, whatever the fucking guy's name is, sounds like Netanyahu a little bit.
Capturing the Prophet Muhammad's bones. Like, this guy is operating on a sociopathic level.
He's out of control.
He's out of control. Baldwin IV, the poor guy, keeps trying to rein him in. He keeps telling him, we have a peace deal. Please, let's respect it. He can't. At one point, Saladin brings an army to besiege Kerak. While the siege is going on, so it's complicated. I don't want to get into the details. There's a wedding going on inside Kerak, and Renaud's wife takes some of the food from the wedding, leaves the fortress, walks out to the army. And like Saladin and his men are like, what's happening? And she's got servants carrying the food with her, right? And she walks right up to Saladin. And of course, in that moment, there's this crazy Crusader woman with food in her hands walking up to, she goes, I brought you some food from the wedding. I hope to share it with you and your men. The honeymoon is going to take place in that tower there. When you're firing the artillery at the fortress, can you try to avoid the tower so that they can have a nice honeymoon?
Oh, wow.
And Saladin accepts the food and orders his artillerymen not to fire at the tower and to focus on the other parts of the fortress.
What was that about?
Oh my gosh. What the fuck? Okay, bro. Firstly, I would not have accepted that food. Who knows what sort of poisonous crap could have been in there? Salahuddin, that's a massive L. I'm sorry, but that wasn't a smart move. Okay? I hope you just discarded it. Second, how crazy? Very polite siege. Yeah. How crazy is it? What would that have looked like? Like this huge army just waiting to attack this place. And the lady with food is just walking over. Oh my gosh. What a scene that would have been.
I think it was a moment of humanity. It was a moment of, I can show kindness in this moment and I lose nothing for that kindness. There was nothing that Baldwin IV could have done to stop him.
Thank you, Amira.
And I think that's the moment, maybe, if not earlier, it's certainly right about there, where Saladin goes, what happens if I show the Crusaders consistent mercy? And I think he realized it would calm them down. It would, whatever the baggage that they were walking around with, that maybe this would bring them down a notch.
I think Saladin just psychoanalyzed the Crusaders in that moment.
By the way, the woman that's getting married is going to eventually become the Queen of Jerusalem.
Oh, really? Tricycle?
Wow.
That's the long story I didn't want to get into, but like it's really complicated. So, but it's fun because there's these weird moving parts.
Yeah.
So after Hattin, he talked the army into only executing the Turcopoles, the Knights Hospitallers, and the Knights Templars. The Turcopoles were Crusaders who fought using Turkish combat tactics, including horse archers. And then of course at Jerusalem he does another giant merciful event as well. And I think it's stuck in the mind of people like, if he's this merciful, how is he our real enemy? He's clearly not our real enemy.
And that's really interesting because then this becomes the legacy of Salahuddin that we remember, that, the canon of who this person was. And there are not a lot of people from that period of time that are remembered for being.
That voice, is that who we think it is? It's Roy Casagranda. Roy Casagranda.
Merciful and chivalrous. And it was a very bloody era.
Yeah. I mean, usually you
take care, Scary.
Enslaved your prisoners or killed your prisoners, because if you didn't kill them, what are you going to do? Free them? They're going to fight you again. And so there was this,
nice tricycle.
You might ransom your prisoners because you'll get money for them at least. There was people didn't just free them. And Salahuddin was going and he was freeing them. And then the Third Crusade happens. There was a moment of unmercy. The Guy de Lusignan was the king of the Crusades when they were defeated at Hut.
Hey, what's like a good doco on the Crusades? Because I don't want the whitewashed version. It's like, these brown barbarians were just around the walls. I don't want the Cletus version. God dang. Them brown folk. Them barbarians. God damn it. Just surrounded us and shit. And we, the whites, We the whites had to slay him. You know? God damn. Dang barbarians. Tell you what, they came up from Iraqistan and Iranistan. All the stands. God dang barbarians. I tell you what. Those whites really had to fight our way through. Freedom. Yeah.
Hattin and then Jerusalem. But after Hattin, Renaud de Chatillon and Guy de Lusignan.
I don't want that documentary, okay? Can we please have a different documentary? Not one like that.
Are brought before Saladin. And Saladin had ice water. And of course, it just broke Crusader minds. Like, how do you have ice water? And he hands the ice water to Guy de Lusignan. And Guy takes a drink. And then he hands it to Renaud de Chatillon. And Saladin said, I did not offer it to him. And then immediately draws his sword and kills Renaud on the spot. And the reason was, if you have a prisoner and you offer them water or food, you can't execute them. And he wanted to kill Renaud. So he quickly kills him on the spot so that he there's no confusion that there was no hospitality. And then of course Guy de Lusignan thinks I'm next, and then Saladin says, no, you drank water that I offered you. You're safe. Kings don't kill kings is what he told him.
What's happening to your stomach and stuff? What's going on?
Obviously, there's still another 100 years of crusades that happen. But this is kind of the moment when the Muslims regain control of Jerusalem.
Yeah, I think there is one more thing worth pointing out, and that is Richard the Lionheart shows up. And the most important piece is he eventually makes a peace treaty with Saladin and then leaves.
Well, I'm glad you don't have some sort of bug. I was like, oh my gosh.
And then Saladin dies after Richard left. But the peace treaty actually held for another 2.5 years after Saladin died. So, you can criticize Saladin and say he was too merciful or whatever. Even though the peace treaty only lasted 3 years, I think it was the end for the Crusades because they lost their edge, their fanatic edge. But it was because of Saladin's mercy. Because he told them, come to Jerusalem anytime you want. I will protect pilgrims to make sure that nobody gets harmed. You never needed to do this to begin with. And I think in that moment, a bunch of them went, yeah, why did we do this?
There would have been a lot more to galvanize around.
He was just this person trying to figure out a way to end this craziness.
Yeah, the Palestinians did this as well, to Holocaust survivors, but also to Europe. Palestinians were very accommodating of everybody. But it was the British that began to crack down on Palestinians. It was the British that began to crack down on Palestinians and create room for this this divide between Jews and Muslims in Palestine. It was the British again, bro. The British have done so much bad shit. It's oh my gosh.
And show people as much humility and dignity and grace as he could possibly muster. With exceptions like Renaud de Chatillon.
With exceptions. But then this is the record that we have of him. This is the caricature of this person that lasts for a long time. And the reason that he's so fascinating is that his image will get invoked over and over again in Muslim lore.
His eagles on flags.
Yeah. I mean, there's also that too. That's true.
And coats of arms.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it deserves to be. He's inspiring. I mean, for so many reasons, but one of them is just his relentless mercy. Who does that? He didn't win by military genius. He won by being a human being.
And so forever he then becomes the benchmark that people in this part of the world imagine when they think of leadership.
Yeah.
And when they
it's the Nakba. The Nakba Tricycle King. Nakba. Tricycle Kid, sorry. When Israel was installed by the West. The Nakba.
Fantasize about a future leader that will come in and unite and then kind of trigger some of
the Nakba means the catastrophe.
Same events that you read about in that part of history. And of course, nothing of significance happens for another 800 years. So
I don't really care for the Roman Empire given it being proto-fascist, but I'm interested in its inception because I find it interesting that the Romans, who were originally a city-state based nationality, spread the very identity of being Roman as their empire expanded instead of spreading the identity of the Latian or Latian or Latial larger people group they ethno-linguistically belonged to as they were from the region. I see. Latium or Lazio or Lazio. Interesting, Rose. Hello. You always come in with some bangers, eh? You come in with a banger, I've noticed, and then you say hello. That's pretty awesome. That's based as. I've heard it said the Europeans learned the colonization and genocide ways from the US, but I believe the US learned from the Europeans because they came first. Oh, yeah. I mean, there weren't white people in the Americas. There weren't any white people in the Americas before Europe got there, you know. There might have been some yeah. The US are European. The white people in the US are Europeans, yes. The settlement started because the Zionists promised to bring America into the war, support the Tsar, and undermine the Austrians, which led to conspiracy theories that resulted in the Holocaust. No, I don't think that's right. The US are Europeans. The government and upper classes sure are European. I think colonization also is more linked to establishment of trade, whereas conquest and genocide used to happen before too. Yeah, not like what the Europeans did though. Not like what the Europeans did. Again, Spigot, like white supremacy, largest man-made human suffering ever. Nothing comes close.
He's going to pretend nothing is happening in the world. But we arrive at this moment where Palestine and Jerusalem is back under Turkish rule, under the Ottoman Empire, which is at this point starting to wane. It's become the sick man of Europe.
Yeah.
The Western Europe, the empires, Britain and France, are kind of salivating. They're looking at it and they're maybe starting to scheme. But then there's this new idea that emerges around the...
By the way, nation state building is quite a new phenomena. I mean, 19th century to say the mid to late 20th century. And those lines, which are still fought over today, were drawn by Europeans. Okay, so what Europe has done to the world hasn't ended. Europe's accountability lies with the lines they've drawn too, that continue to kill people today. That's why, like, our world is so divided because of what Europe has done. This is Europe's accountability for all the shit that's happening.
Late 1800s, which is Zionism.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? And why does the Christian part of Europe, these Christian leaders who really embrace it at some point and champion it and fund it, why does that relationship happen?
The founder of Zionism is a guy named Theodor Herzl. He was Jewish Austrian, and the I'm going to use this metaphor on purpose. The straw that breaks the camel's back is the Dreyfus affair. So Dreyfus was a Jewish officer in the French army.
Yeah.
And there is a security.
By the way, I cover this in my documentary, From Herzl to Gaza.
Breach. Some classified material is leaked, and the French army needs to scapegoat somebody. It is clear Dreyfus had nothing to do with this. So they pick him, they try him, they find him.
Wrote about what Islam did to India. Whatever Islam did to India, it doesn't come close to what the British did to India. Because in essence, the what do you call it? Those leaders? No, bro, you're just making shit up. India's population wasn't even 80 million. What the fuck are you talking about? You just, again, this is the problem, guys. This is the problem with snowflakes. Snowflakes just continue to just lie because they want some way to whitewash history about what white people did to the world, white supremacy did to the world, what the British did to the world. It's the craziest fucking thing.
Him guilty, and they send him off to prison in French Guyana. And Herzl goes, that's it. There's no place for Jews in Europe. We will never be treated as first-class citizens. But Herzl isn't wrong in the sense that up until that moment, there had been 800 years of pogroms to commemorate, to celebrate.
Yeah, this is on TikTok again. Man, we get a lot of snowflakes. Unfortunately, it's people trying to rewrite what European colonization has done. European colonization, everyone needs to understand that what European colonization has done to the world is the largest man-made human suffering ever. Nothing comes close. And it was coordinated. So you cannot just ignore that history and go, oh, yeah, Islam, blah, blah, blah. What white supremacy has done to the world and still continues to do to the world, unmatched. Nothing comes close. The difference in human suffering is so vast. The difference in human suffering is so vast. In the last 600 years, the amount of people murdered, enslaved, the amount of wealth stolen, the amount of land stolen, the amount of arbitrary lines drawn, nothing comes close. It's genocide after genocide after genocide, all coordinated.
To inaugurate the Crusades, the Crusaders go along the Rhine River and attack the Jewish German communities that were living there, and then they went to the Middle East and began slaughtering Muslims.
This is a celebration.
This is how they inaugurated the Crusades. They went on a rampage and began murdering Jews. And then they went to Constantinople and eventually arrived in the Middle East. So in other words, when Herzl's talking, there had been 800 years of pogroms where anytime anything went wrong in Europe, the Jews did it. There's an inflation crisis, the Jews did it.
Yeah, Europe is the most anti-Semitic place, has always been the most anti-Semitic place. And what I mean when I say white supremacy, bro, Spanish, British, or all the colonizer nations, the Dutch, German, French, Portuguese.
There was a fire in the city. The Jews did it.
See, this is what, because for those 1300 years, Europe was enslaving Slavs as well. I'm not saying slavery didn't exist before the voyages started in mid 1400s. I'm saying after the voyages started in the mid 1400 with the Portuguese and Prince Henry, it has been the largest man-made human suffering ever. Nothing comes close. This is what you don't understand. What happened in the mid 1400s is the fact that Prince Henry basically turned race into policy. Read stamped from the beginning. This Spirit Winds is just another snowflake.
And so he's not wrong in the sense that there is this history of persecution of Jews.
In the last 600 years, what European colonization has done to the world is the largest man-made human suffering ever. And that human suffering is based on, what do you mean? Why doesn't it work right, Mike? Why doesn't it work right? Crazy. These fucking people are snowflakes. Yeah, bro. What's happened in the last 600 years is the largest man-made human suffering ever. It's happened in 600 years. It's happened in 600 years. European colonization happened in the last 600 years based on white supremacy. Like, what is so fucking hard for you people to understand? Bro, the Mongol conquest killed 56 million people. In 40 years, the British starved 100 million Indians to death. That was in 40 years in one country. Between 1880 and 1920. Europe. What about, Europe has killed millions in the Congo. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Herero and Nama in Namibia. Africa has had so many people murdered. 12.5 million people enslaved from Africa through transatlantic slave trade. 50 odd million Native Americans murdered. Millions murdered in Latin America. Millions murdered across Asia. Do you think these numbers are small? Don't be unnecessarily ignorant.
I think the interesting thing to me is it was such a minor event. Don't get me wrong, it sucked for Dreyfus. But when you compare it to all the other horrors that had happened to the Jewish communities up until that point, it's shocking that it was that moment that sort of broke this. What he said was the Jews need a place outside of Europe that they can go to and call a homeland. Once he created Zionism and it spread, everybody went, oh, it's got to be Palestine. That's where we're from originally. Let's go home. And so that's sort of the birth of it. Those guys went, that's genius. If we can figure out how to get you to Palestine, you're not in Europe anymore.
And these are the people in power at this point in Europe.
There's a bunch of people in power who are like this. There's a bunch of activists who aren't in power who are thinking all
and
those
they're
lines.
Christian.
They're Christian. And they're thinking, yeah, we don't want Jews in Europe. You're right. This is a great solution. We hate you and we can get rid of you. All we have to do is pretend we like you and we're trying to help you fulfill your goals. And so in that moment, anti-Semitism and Zionism have this really interesting wedding, and they have a common cause, which is the expulsion of the Jewish communities from Europe.
It was so coordinated that in the 1800s, a term was coined called capitalism for what Europe was doing at the time, and that was the concentration of wealth in a few places, in Britain, in London, and in Amsterdam. And the term capitalism was coined in the 1800s, 1860-ish. And that is the system that continues today. Today's capitalism comes from European colonization. That's why it hasn't ended. Because instead of being on the ground, instead of boots on the ground, Europe and the West continue to colonize the world through proxy institutions like the IMF, like the UN, like the World Trade Organization. Capitalism has become the means of wealth extraction, and it continues to this day, to this second.
And this happens, of course, decades before the rise of Hitler and the Third Reich, and then ultimately the Holocaust.
Yes. And the Holocaust, in a way, is really just sort of like the last great pogrom. It gives you 850 years of just brutal mistreatment of the Jewish community in Europe.
And Jewish people were much safer, although second-class citizens, they were much safer in the Ottoman Empire than they were in Europe, bro. Fuck it. Hands down, Jewish people were much safer in the Ottoman Empire than in Europe. Europe was horrible to Jewish people.
And by contrast, Jews were thriving in the Middle East under Arab rule, under Turkish rule. They were thriving in Persia. You know, the Jewish community in Isfahan had been there for how many 20, by the time that we get to Theodor Herzl, 25 centuries. And you know, Saladin had two physicians who were Jewish. Maimonides, the great Maimonides, like, you know, the greatest Jewish philosopher of the medieval period, and another Jewish physician named Ibn Jumay. The Kingdom of Granada at one point had a Jewish.
This is exactly the reason why I cannot conflate Judaism with Zionism. I cannot conflate it, because as much as Europe wants you to do that, as much as European leaders want you to do that, the reason why they want you to do that is they want to whitewash Europe's history. They want to whitewash Europe's accountability in, you know, the Holocaust. They want to whitewash Europe's accountability in the partition plan of Palestine and what's happening today. It's like Europe has been the most dangerous place for Jewish people for centuries. White supremacy has treated Jewish people like trash.
Jewish wazir, you know, like the Jewish community in the Middle East did great. The Jewish community in Europe was constantly persecuted.
What do you mean they'll be milking the Holocaust for many more years? Bro, the Holocaust was brutal. 6 million people. What the fuck are you talking about? What do you mean milking? It was a fucking Holocaust. It's not about milking. That's insane.
In this terrible role. So in a way, it made sense to go to Palestine. I think the disconnect was, why would you go to Palestine to conquer it and then ethnically cleanse it and then create a Jewish-only state? That's I think where the confusion sets in, right?
And at that point in time, is the idea of the crusade over? This idea that Christendom had a claim, especially, you know, Europe had a claim to this land. Is that still alive?
It's still alive today. So there's two Maltas in the UN. There's the Malta that has a state and a government, and then there's the sovereign military order of Malta. That's the Crusaders. The Crusaders don't have a vote in the UN, but they have an observer in the UN. The Palestinians have an observer in the UN. Like there's this clear holding on to this dream, even though it was put down centuries ago. And then when World War I happens, Arabs rebel because they don't want to be under Ottoman rule anymore. And the British and the French cynically are using them because they had taken out a crayon and a napkin and then drawn a map of the Middle East and carved up the Ottoman Empire like a Thanksgiving Day turkey. And in the British mind, they were getting Palestine. King Richard had never taken Jerusalem. And so in a way, they saw this as, we're finally fulfilling Richard the Lionheart's dream and we're getting Jerusalem.
And I want you to really flesh this point out, because the Arabs rebel with the help of the British against the Ottomans.
Yeah.
And that's how the British get Palestine. And the Arabs think that they're getting independence out of this.
They lose. And so at that point, the Arabs are defeated and...
Oh, thank you, Vivid. Thank you. Vividness, welcome.
The French conquer Lebanon and Syria. And the French general in charge goes to Salah ad-Din's tomb and he kicks it. And he says, "We're back, Salah ad-Din."
Wow.
So at least in his mind, this was clearly
a
the
crusade.
Crusades.
Mm.
The French and the British were careful. No, we promise we're not.
At least in this mind, it was a crusade. Bro, Pete Hegseth currently thinks it's a crusade. This shit hasn't ended. Pete Hegseth thinks he's a crusader. Have you seen the videos of the American military doing like prayers and shit? It's scary, man.
Well, of course it's a crusade. What else would it be?
And then so Palestine becomes the British Mandate of Palestine. By this point, they've signed the Balfour Declaration promising this piece of land essentially to...
By the way, Lord Balfour was a massive anti-Semite. He sponsored the 1905 Aliens Act, which was to keep Jews fleeing pogroms from Eastern Europe, keep Jews out of Britain who were fleeing pogroms from Eastern Europe. And yeah, Balfour himself was a massive anti-Semite, and he wanted to move Jewish people out of Europe to another place. He just thought Zionism was a vehicle to do that. He was like, oh, if we encourage Zionism, then, you know, we can get rid of the Jews from Europe. That was his calculus. And by getting rid of the Jews and giving them their own land in Palestine, Britain could maintain its control in the Middle East while also, you know, moving Jews out of Europe. Modern Knights Templar, etc., are publicly trying to do a revival too. Yeah, it's stupid, man. It's Doc Kirsten.
Thank you, friends.
European Jews.
Hello.
So now there's this disconnect because the British are sort of playing both sides. But the British, they didn't want to lose Jerusalem. This is their dream come true. They had fulfilled Richard the Lionheart's dream. They were thinking that the British Empire, you know, after World War II, it was clear they were going to lose India. But in their mind, I think they thought they were still going to hold on to parts of the empire. That, yeah, it was going to be dramatically reduced in size and power, but, you know, Jerusalem wasn't too much to ask for. So they didn't want Israel to be created by any means. And of course...
Yeah, they didn't want Israel to be created. It was very clear in Winston Churchill's 1922 white paper, which basically said Palestine isn't going to be, you know, turned into there's going to be no Jewish specific state within Palestine. Winston Churchill said that in his white paper in 1922. He just took it all back. He was a massive racist too, you know, a massive racist fascist. Like, I hate that in the West we have to celebrate these things. One of the biggest celebrations that I think is ridiculous is what do you call Anzac Day? I think it is the most bullshit white supremacist holiday or day ever. Because what were these soldiers fighting for? They were fighting for the British to maintain its empire. What were the British doing at the time? Murdering Indians at least, and murdering so many more indigenous people around the world. Like, what is there to celebrate about Anzac Day? Why do we need to celebrate any New Zealanders or Australians going to support empire? Like, what the fuck are we doing? Why is supporting empire so important? I think Anzac Day is just the most tone-deaf celebration of a time in history where the British Empire was committing mass atrocities around the world, and World War I was basically to maintain the British Empire. I hate it. I hate Anzac Day. I fucking hate it. Anzacs were also involved in enforcing the British mandate in Palestine in the 1920s, right? Yes, exactly. Bro, if you're going to parties and celebrating like white supremacy, then what the fuck are you doing? And also, I read your racist name. I read your racist name. Do you think that's funny?
Pretty soon, Jewish terrorist organizations begin committing acts of terrorism in Palestine because they're trying to break the British will to hold on.
Oh, fucking hell. Oh my gosh. This is are you at all concerned with the effect this framing has on white people who are just living their lives? Bro, until white supremacy and white privilege are dismantled, don't fucking talk to me about white people being the victims. Look at what's happening right now in Palestine. There's a genocide. And what the fuck? Why are you victimizing whiteness here? It's crazy.
Onto this place.
And when you look at these early Zionists, the especially the ones that ended up creating these organizations,
it's not hate, buddy. It's history. It's history, dumbass. White supremacy is still very real. White privilege is still very real, buddy. It's still very real. White supremacy still causes a lot of death and suffering, the most in the world. Look at the way Palestinian lives are reported in mainstream media compared to Ukrainian lives or Israeli lives. Like, white supremacy is literally murdering millions of people around the world. Look at what Elon Musk did with USAID. Hundreds of thousands of people have been murdered. Hundreds of thousands of people have been murdered. What do you mean actions by governments and leaders, dumbass? White privilege is across the board. White privilege exists in every part of society. Why are you such a snowflake, dude? Why are you such a snowflake? Acknowledge white privilege. Like, you can't even do the basics.
Palestine, and their aim is to try and create this new Jewish state. What is that birth of?
Like, literally half white people were the most to vote for Donald Trump. Like, more white people voted for Donald Trump in his second run. Not acknowledging white supremacy and white privilege is racist.
The state look like.
So they know it's going to have to be violent.
It's not hate. It's describing a structure of oppression. America is the most ethnically diverse country in the world. Oh, bro, these fucking people. These fucking people. Do you see the demographics who voted for Donald Trump, dumbass? Like, do I need to...
And the reason it's going to have to be violent is because, okay, by the time we get to 1947, when the UN creates Israel by vote, when we get to that moment, the Zionists only owned 7% of Palestine. So they have a problem. They have legal deed of a fraction of what they want. The UN gives them 55% and then gives the Palestinians 45%. But the population is overwhelmingly Palestinian. So how do you make that work? And the answer is take a...
Oh, bro, don't say leftist. Say the slur you're really thinking about, buddy. Don't say leftist stupidity. Say the slur you're really thinking about. You want to say it, don't you? Just say it, bro. Just say it. Why are you hiding behind leftism? Why are you hiding behind what you're going to call me? You're going to call me woke next? Are you going to call me a communist? Bro, come on. Say the slur you want to say. Bro, these guys are cowards.
Page out of the United States' playbook or the Crusades' playbook. That's part of what Israel is thinking. We can't have a large Arab population because they'll be they'll foment rebellion. So when they invade in 1948, the Deir Yassin massacre, that of course causes a panic event and Palestinians begin to flee. So the majority of the population in Gaza and the West Bank are actually refugees. They're internal refugees. They're not from there. They're from other parts of Palestine. And instead of Israel ending up with 55%.
Your DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. Yeah, like what's bad about that?
Of Palestine ended up with 78% because it literally carved another 23%, another quarter.
And those stories from places like Deir Yassin then becomes the horrific kind of lore that then spreads to other towns and cities, and Palestinians hear about it, and then they decide, do I want to stay and face whatever horror comes next, or do I?
Nothing wrong with participation awards. I think a person who can firstly change his name to a racist slur and be brazen enough to do that in a chat and then pretend like they're not completely fucking fragile about this great replacement theory bullshit, it to me is just cowardly in the most raw sense. Like, you're hiding behind an anonymous profile using racial slurs. Like, at least show your face, bro. Do you want to come up to the camera and tell me? You want to come up with a camera and fucking tell me? Bro, grow a pet. Come here. Come on camera and call me what your name is. I know who you are. I know who you are. I know exactly who you are. You are a fragile white supremacist who hasn't acknowledged what white supremacy has done to the world. You hate that I talk about it.
I want to leave. And so that I'm also thinking about some of the early conquests of the Crusades when they were using almost that terror to be able to help them gain ground.
Antioch and Ma'ara, for example, were both examples of that. So yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Bob, the chat thing was joking, by the way, guys. Mr. Bob, the chat thing was joking. Racists are cowards.
I mean, in that way, the two events are very much paralleled. Their European population coming in and ethnically cleansing it, using a large amount of violence. And I think what happened was...
next time you make like a sarcastic comment or something, I always say this to people, just put like a kappa at the end of it or something. Just put a kappa at the end of it.
The Arab world, the Palestinian population, but also everybody else, the Jordanians, the Egyptians, the Syrians, they couldn't comprehend the cruelty of what the Israeli plan was. They didn't get that the scale at which the Israelis were operating. It's unclear. But so one of the things that paralyzes the Arabs in that moment is shock. They're just shocked. Like, what's happening? And I think that's also what happened in the Crusades. The Arabs just couldn't believe the scale of the Crusader invasion, and they didn't know how to respond.
And I think there's something interesting too about the fact that the Zionist settlers that were there had just come out of 2 world wars, so they were pretty good soldiers. Like, they knew how to fight. And then that image of the Zionist as a fighter really becomes the core foundation of how the country sees itself, as this almost kind of like a garrison state.
I mean, that's what the Crusades also saw themselves as too, right? They were an army without a land is basically what both Israel and the Crusader states were. And then they just took a land and suddenly they became something else. But that's still what Israel is, right? They can't get out of this need to constantly be at war, just like the Crusader states were stuck in that. Yeah. And it's in part because they're an army. I mean, it's
like, oh, bro, let's not worry about the millions of people being murdered right now because of capitalism and white supremacy and white privilege, the structures of oppression that are causing this. which have been built over 600 years of European colonization and continue to extract wealth from the global south. Let's not worry about that. Let's worry about the feelings of those people, those poor white people with the white privilege, because, yeah, their lives obviously matter more than the people that are being murdered through these systems. Like, what the fuck are we talking about here?
The point where mandatory service for both men and women, they really are an army. And the Crusaders were just that. They were an army.
And now this is the moment in our conversation where I ask you to...
It was like that time. It was like that time we were watching two newscasts, news segments. I think both from DW. There was not just from DW. Sorry, one story had mainstream media covering it, and it was about power outages in Germany. Okay, there were all of these people fucking crowding around in school halls and shitty beds, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, this is so bad." They had interviews with people. They were like, "Oh, it's so bad, it's so bad." And another story that got 2 minutes of time with some narrative was in Chad. A bunch of people had just run through a market and murdered like a whole bunch of people in Chad, like 40 people. And on camera was a guy speaking, and behind him was a man digging a mass grave. Got 2 minutes of airtime in the West. 2 minutes. And that power outage in Germany got more airtime, more empathy, like 1,000 times more airtime and more empathy than the dude in Chad who was digging a mass grave for his killed relatives. That's the world we live in right now.
To sort of like leap off the edge of history and look at the present moment and where we're at here, because there are a lot of parallels, and we've covered a lot of parallels. The state of Israel, when you look at the politics of the country, when you look at the way that it talks about itself, it talks
about the country in Central Africa, yes,
about itself in very existential terms. It's still fighting for its survival. It feels like it's constantly under attack, that it has enemies all around it, and that is used to justify military campaigns and escalations. And I mean, when you look at it from a historical lens,
this was like a couple of months ago. It was about 2 or 3 months ago, and we did this whole juxtaposition of this power outage in Germany versus this dude digging a mass grave on live TV. It was insane. Like, we were going through this 2 minutes. That's all the mass grave story got in the West. 2 minutes, DW News. And the voice they used was AI. But, think about those poor people who had to go to fucking, sports halls with heaters and beds. That's what deserves 100 times more coverage than fucking a dude digging a mass grave. Insane, bro. Like, I just can't understand white fragility when talking about racism and white supremacy. Like, that has to end. And I think the only way that ends is if white people educate white people. There needs to be white-on-white education. There has to be white-on-white education. Not white-on-white crime. White-on-white education. Go to your circles. Go educate people about the world, the reality of it. I'm sick of hearing these white people fucking being so fragile in my chat because I'm talking about European colonization that still hasn't ended to this day. White supremacy hasn't ended to this day. The white supremacist Christian patriarchy that causes so much fucking harm is still very much the operating system today. Educate other white people. Don't lecture black and brown people.
Where is the state, this very young state, at? How does it identify with itself in the region? Is it stable? Can it survive?
So
Who's watching the convenience store? Your mother. You should have left them my clothes brush. Your mother's watching it.
I'm going to invoke another parallel, and it's obvious and beaten to death, but it's the best one we have, and it's South Africa. So the government that created apartheid was elected in 1948, and the first apartheid law went into effect in 49. Israel was created in 1948. Like, it's impossible to not notice that weirdness. What's strange about both states is it's post-World War II. So hasn't the world just learned about the cruelty of ethnic cleansing, for example, and this kind of apartheid state that is being created? And apparently the answer was, it's okay if you're white. And your victim is brown or black. It's not okay if your victim is white.
Sometimes education doesn't work. What doesn't help. Ridicule and shaming also needs to happen. Yeah, white people can do it to their families. Like, why does this education have to happen in silos? Like, why can't white people like ridicule their families if they believe that genocide's okay, if they believe that the West is somehow like the Messiah, you know? Like, it's up to you guys. Educate your families. Like,
right, because how is what Israel did to Palestine any different than what Germany did to Poland? And I can't give you an answer because I don't see.
Modi Noisy, have you heard of Safir Mohammed Kuri Manil? No, I haven't. I've been making fun of white people for 40 years as a white person, not about to stop. Yeah, we need to educate. Stop putting the burden on people of color. I educate my parents too, man. Their Hindu nationalist tendencies need to be seen. My brother too, right? Like the fact that he has so much of a platform and hasn't spoken out about the genocide in Gaza is absolutely shameful. And building relationships with Modi, shameful. Like, these are the types of things that if we don't do within our own families and hold our families to account, hold our own circles to account, then no one else will. If you are too scared, harden up. Because this is a matter of life or death. This is a matter of life or death for Palestinians in Gaza. This is a matter of life or death for people in Sudan. People going through genocide right now, it's a matter of life or death. Whether you educate your family and you can bring them along on the journey, it is everything.
They look the same to me. So apartheid goes into effect, and before long...
Too late, I've already denounced all of my family who are still MAGA. Oh, Mr. Anderson.
Really, by the 1960s, South Africa finds itself in this real...
I think moving into the next the next 2 decades, white on white education is going to be the most important tool to stop human suffering. It's got to be white on white education. It has to be.
Really big war. It's fighting in Namibia, it's fighting in Angola, it's fighting Zambia, and it's called the border war. It lasts 20 years, and it's this exhausting war. Well, that describes Israel really well. Israel has been stuck bombing Lebanon, bombing Syria for how many decades now, right? Israel invaded Lebanon in 78, withdrew, then invaded in 82, stayed until 2000, was finally driven out by Hezbollah, invaded again in 2006, invaded again in 2024. Like, they're just this repeat cycle, which is shockingly like the Crusades as well.
Yeah.
Israel fought.
Yes. This is so interesting, you know. Him drawing that line to Saladin, just saying, guys, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? Why are you doing this over and over again?
3 wars against Egypt. It wasn't 5 like King Amalric did, but still, like, there's this and Israel captured the Sinai and shut down the Suez Canal, and 16 years of of Israeli occupation in the Sinai. So there's lots of these themes, these parallels that come in. What I'm hoping is that we're closing in on its 1987 moment, that we're closing in on its 1192 moment. So 1192 is when Richard and Salahuddin make a deal. By the way, Richard and Salahuddin never met. Salahuddin's brother did all the negotiating. 1987, the South African government began secret negotiations with the ANC.
Lastly, there are the Baltic Crusaders, where the Swedish and soldiers of the Teutonic Order genocided and Abrahamized the pagan followers of traditional religions of Baltic, Uralic, and West Slavic people groups, with the last one's religion being referred as Rodism or Rodnovery by some. The native Old Prussians of Twangst or Kaliningrad were killed by Germans, which then took the name New Prussia for themselves and became later the Kingdom of Prussia, made Germany in 1871. If Kaliningrad is lost by Russia, it should be given to Lithuania, in my opinion.
And it was because they realized they had reached a point where they couldn't go on. Part of that was that the United States had finally stopped funding the South African state. And without that flow of support from Europe, because Europe had done it earlier, and the United States, there was no way to sustain their model. They needed that European trade. They needed that European and American.
My bro is MAGA and is an American. He idolizes that PDF like nothing I've ever seen. Boy, do we fight. Yeah, I know the Sri Lankan dude who lives in Australia. He used to live in Aotearoa, my brother's friend. Incredibly MAGA. Like brown dude, Sri Lankan dude. MAGA to the hilt. Doesn't care about genocide, just loves Trump so much. It's like, what the hell? What's wrong with you, bro? Some people just want chains around their ankles, you know?
American support. And I think there was kind of a burden.
Some people want adjacency to white supremacy so badly that they'll do the stupid shit.
It's of a feather thing, right? South Africa, Israel, United States.
They're settler colonies.
They're settler colonies. Yeah. They're designed to grind down the native population. So I think there was a lot of sympathy. But Reagan didn't want to give up on South Africa. We have him in a recorded telephone conversation with Nixon referring to Africans as monkeys. It's pretty clear that Reagan saw black people as subhuman. And so in his mind, white-ruled South Africa was the best path for South Africa. But the Republican Party finally told him there's no path to save South Africa. We might be heading in that direction in the United States.
Especially when you look at what's happening on the right right now in America.
Yeah, the right and then Hollywood.
My siblings fight over politics all of the time. The only question that you should always start with, if you are scared and you don't know where to start, is, do you agree that what's happening in Gaza is a genocide? That is the ultimate filter. And then you can proceed from there. If that's a no, then you cannot pass. You can only open up other political discussions once that question is answered. This is an all-time filter that you've been given. This is what the Palestinians gave to us in terms of discussions around racism, bigotry, and white supremacy, etc. They've given us this privilege. They've given us this lifetime opportunity in order to go, hey, to start a conversation that way if you are truly wanting to talk about politics. Because the yes or no gives you an opportunity to understand, or even the hesitation gives you an opportunity to understand where their mindset is straight away. Any hesitation, anyone who says no, they do not center human rights, including your own family. The moment your family hesitates about genocide, they don't care about human rights. Why should our families get a special position on whether it's a genocide or not? Why? Our families don't deserve that, just like no one in the world deserves leniency for not calling what's happening a genocide. It's a human thing. It transcends bloodlines.
And like there's the Gen Z, there's all these places in which we're starting to see people go, why are we doing this? Why are we supporting Israel's genocide of the Palestinian people? We're also starting to see Israelis question that. There's been a large number of Israelis who have left Israel permanently, and they're only losing more. And then, of course, we've seen it with the Jewish community in the United States. They see it for what it is, and it's harmful to everybody.
Yeah, but my brother says that, like, when I called my brother out and his company out, people were like, bro, this is such a dick move. It's your own brother. I'm like, bro, blood is not thicker than genocide, bro. Blood is not thicker than human rights. Blood is not thicker than human rights. Blood is not thicker than genocide. Like, why are we, letting this go? Why are we letting this insane inhumanity just be ignored, even by our own families? Like, the least we can do is get our families on side. The least.
The Jewish people are going to have to live with this legacy forever, right? This history isn't going to disappear. It's not going to vanish. Like, I'm part German. My family left Austria in 1904. Like, we weren't part of the Holocaust. It doesn't matter. It still affects me. I still have shame as a part German for the fact that Germany did this Holocaust. This is something that you can't get rid of within a few generations.
I blocked my dad in October because he thought I gave Palestinians $10,000, but I started a GoFundMe. Yeah, I mean, it's people are just crazy. This CL guy is just another racist, bro. Cynthia, just another racist. We don't need another racist in the chat today.
Type of damage and trauma was earned. The Jewish people were put through hell in Europe. The problem is they're acting on the trauma instead of dealing with the trauma. The hope I have is that the Israelis are going to get exhausted. They're going to stop getting the kind of support that they get from Germany and the United States, because Germany and the United States are the only reason Israel's still operating. If Germany and the United States simply had cut off support, Israel would be forced to the negotiation tables and they'd have to make a deal.
And this is an interesting point for us to draw our conversation to a close, is when you hear Israeli leadership, especially today, talk about why the West needs to support them. They use the language of a civilizational battle.
Yeah.
And they invoke this idea of a Judeo-Christian civilization.
Yeah.
And you've painted this picture that spans 1,000 years. And a large part of that, the Christians and the Jews were not on the same side.
And they're never on the same side. Even when there was a Roman Empire, the Romans were brutalizing the Jewish population.
What do you think of that idea of painting history in that way?
So, I mean, it's obvious that this Judeo-Christian idea came out of the Zionist movement to restructure history and religion in a way that would make sense to the average uneducated American, right? They'd be like, oh, yeah. The reality is that historically, Jews have always had a home in the Middle East. The creation of Israel created a catastrophic situation for those Jewish communities. There used to be a wonderful, massive, beautiful community in Morocco, another one in Iraq, another one in Yemen, another one in Egypt. And what Israel has actually successfully done, which is another tragedy, is destroyed those communities. I was in Morocco in 2018. And one of the things that I did was I went synagogue to synagogue because I wanted to actively mourn the loss of the Jewish Moroccan community. So my wife and I were going, we started in Casablanca and we ended up in Essaouira. We went to the Jewish quarter and we went to this larger synagogue, and the government had torn down this the synagogue because it was collapsing. And then they built a brand new synagogue in its place. And we went to the top level because it's semi-museum, it's a functioning synagogue, but it has like a museum quality to it. And when we get up there, we see a woman, and she's the curator of the museum. And my wife asks, "Are you Jewish?" And the woman says, "No, I'm Muslim." And my wife says, "You're the curator, right?" And she goes, "Yes." And my wife says, "Why is the Moroccan government spending millions and millions of dollars maintaining these synagogues when the Jewish community is mostly gone?" And the woman said, "We're waiting for them to come home. There are Jews. They were taken from us. Morocco can never be whole until they come back. And we're waiting. And we're going to keep these synagogues operating. We're never going to give up on them."
Wow. What a really beautiful story to end on. Thank you for sharing that.
Amazing.
Roy, it has been a pleasure to be able to speak to you.
About 2 years ago, I dated a girl for a few months who I'd known for around 23 years. I knew we were done when she told me she didn't care about what was being done to the Palestinians. I never actually knew her. Yeah, man. It sucks. Honestly, I've heard so many stories like that. I mean, I've been through that myself. It's terrible. It's terrible to know that the closest people around you don't even give a fuck about this. It's tough. It's fucking tough. Do you think if there was less genocide in Palestine, anti-Semitism would decrease? No. Anti-Semitism is a white supremacist thing. Until white supremacy is dismantled and, the structures of oppression created by white supremacy are dismantled and we have a more equitable world for all, then anti-Semitism will continue because that's bigotry and racism to divide will always be the case. That's how white supremacy is propagated. That's how anti-Semitism is propagated. But would you agree that anti-Semitism has increased because of this genocide? Yeah, I mean, anti-Semitism has increased because of this genocide, because of a number of factors. Because a lot of people conflate Judaism and Zionism, and that's the main reason why. Morocco is signed and sealed with the Abraham Accords. Yeah, exactly, Ladybird. Morocco has signed the Abraham Accords. It's looking like Saudi will sign the Abraham Accords as well. You know who conflate Judaism and Zionism the most? Zionists. Zionists. I have non-political friends that have become very anti-Israel because of what has been going on. Yeah, it's just like so many people were against the anti-apartheid regime in South Africa when they understood what was happening. It's no different. It's no different. I mean, this is a genocide, right? Like, how can we not oppose these policies? How can we not oppose these structures of oppression? Apartheid, genocide, ethnic cleansing, colonization happening in real time. Like, how can we not oppose it? But that's not anti-Semitism. That's opposition of policy. Anti-Semitism is the conflation of Judaism with Zionism. And you know who does that? The white supremacists do that a lot. There's a lot of people that I see online who are following people like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and Nick Fuentes, and all of these. And brown and black people get stuck with these people as well. And these people perpetuate. They actually couldn't give a fuck about Palestinians. They don't care. They care about. They have a hate for Judaism, right? Then that is something very different. Oh, Morty, thank you so much. Thank you, Morty. Oh my gosh, thank you. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that a lot. Holy moly. Thank you. But guys, do not downplay the marginalization of Jewish people. Like, it's real. It's real. As this guy said, the historian said, Jewish people have been marginalized throughout history. That is not a lie. My issue is that we shouldn't be selectively uplifting minorities. I believe all minorities deserve equitable ways forward. All minorities. Oppressed minorities deserve equitable ways forward. It's not just about one. It's not just about the one we think is the trend of the month. It's all. Every single one. And it's not about bringing another minority down to like shitty levels. It's about lifting that level up for everyone. And I hate it when people say things like do Holocaust denial or speak directly at Jewish people and say Judaism is the issue or whatever. Like it's crazy. I just don't understand it, because they're impacting all minorities when they say that. And on the flip side, when Zionists and evangelicals say that Judaism is the most important, they're also impacting all minorities. It should be equitable for all. It should be equitable for all. Minorities should be treated in an equitable way. You're more concerned with current atrocities? Yeah, that's the problem though, Jimu. You should be concerned with current atrocities, but without understanding the history, without understanding why we got to this point, then you could get sucked into the vortices of far-right voices. Because that's how it works. That's how it works. If you don't know that Hitler used the same sort of dehumanization that Israeli state's using, you're going to be, Europe used in the global south for generations, you're obviously going to be bamboozled into thinking that Jewish people or Judaism is the enemy. You can't get into that mode. You just can't. It's not about tearing down someone else's rights. It's about making rights for all minority and marginalized groups equitable for all. That's the important part. I hate it when people say, oh, Jews are, they're treated too well. No, it's not that. They're being prioritized. Everyone needs to be, all minority groups need to be prioritized to the same level. It's not about bringing Jewish people down. It's about lifting everybody up. Okay. Yeah, because they reuse the same tricks and tactics. We have to understand the history. We have to understand the history to accurately clock those deceptions when they are deployed to reinforce racial prejudice and divisions. Yeah, exactly. South African Jewish citizens who opposed the apartheid state definitely had no qualms to be anti-Zionist. I mean, Israel had normalized trade relations with South Africa at this time. You had to oppose both. Yeah, exactly. I just think it's so reductive to just say Judaism is the problem. It's crazy. It's just untrue. And I just feel people spreading all sorts of hate that way and trying to bring Judaism down or Jewish people down. That shouldn't be the aim. It should be to lift everybody up to the same levels. And that's what justice is. Anyway. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and spending this time with me. Thank you so much. Just remember, it's it's a fight against a system that is constantly looking to shut our movements down, shut the working class down, shut minority groups' voices down. So choose your battles wisely. Eniko, thank you for the rose. Take care, everybody. We are rating Time Card MN, Man. Time Card Man. And all right, Raiders, if you're ready to go, then we're going to get into it. Please let Time Card Man know that I'm going to raid and run. But thank you so much for being here. Oh, Time Card Minnesota. I see. I'm going to raid and run. So take care, everybody. Kakite, Pomarie. Stay safe, and I'll see you tomorrow. Here we go, everyone. In 3, 2, 1. Enjoy the raid, everybody. Enjoy the raid. And Kakite, TikTok, Free Palestine, Kakite, everybody. I will see you all soon, okay? Kakite, folks.